Chapter 6:14. Han Fei gave all the points to Yu Lingyun and the other 3 for a reason. The main reason was that the few of them were too weak. Whether it was their equipment or their cultivation techniques, they were all lacking. This made Han Fei feel that it was very unfavorable for his subsequent actions. He was prepared to stay in the advanced scout team for a period of time. As a long-term teammate, if the team members were weak, not only would it make people feel that the team leader was useless, but it would also be a hindrance. The next day, Gu Daliang now had 10 more superior-grade spiritual weapons. Leng Hui exchanged for a demon-level high-grade movement technique. Wu Xiaoxiao did not exchange anything. In her words, it was not something that could be done in a day or two. Besides, as a spirit gatherer, she didn't need to worry about cultivation techniques in the short term. Yu Lingyun didn't exchange anything either. All the points were given to Gu Daliang and Leng Hui. At this point, the 5 of them did not have more than 10 points in total. Above the skeleton coast, Han Fei asked, "How large is our detection range?" Yu Lingyun replied, "About 200 kilometers." Han Fei was stunned. So small? Yu Lingyun was lost for words. This is not the level 3 fishery. One could travel tens of thousands of kilometers in the level 3 fishery without encountering a single exotic creature. However, it's easy to run into them around the Scattered Stars Island. As the few of them spoke, they saw a black shadow diving down from the sky. It was like a meteorite falling from the sky, plunging into the sea. Then, a big bird flew out of the sea with a big fish in its claws. Wu Xiaoxiao said, "That's a black-winged heron, a rare level 45 seabird. They fall from the sky at an extremely fast speed, and their sharp claws can easily crush high-grade spirit artifacts." Watching the big bird fly away, Han Fei couldn't help but ask, "Has anyone ever captured such a bird as a contractual spiritual beast?" Wu Xiaoxiao replied, "Of course. Countless people have tried. However, they later found out that even if they caught him, they would not be able to catch him. After the fusion, he would not be able to use the flying ability of these birds. Moreover, it's not easy to fight at the bottom of the sea with this kind of bird." Leng Hui added, "Besides, there aren't many creatures on the Scattered Stars Island in the first place. These birds are social creatures, and they are very vengeful, so they are very difficult to catch." Han Fei nodded. "Are we going to the sea?" "It's already been half a day, why are we still flying in the sky?" Yu Lingyun said, "The first 200 kilometers won't be very deep. It's only less than 1,000 meters deep. We can use our senses to sense the situation at the bottom of the sea. Once we cross the first 200 kilometers, the water depth will exceed 1,000 meters. Under certain circumstances, we will need to enter the sea." Han Fei couldn't help but ask, "How wide is your perception range?" Everyone looked up at Han Fei. Yesterday, they had already guessed that Han Fei's perception might be very terrifying. Yu Lingyun said, "Right now, Xiao Xiao has the largest perception range, which is exactly 1,000 meters. Leng Hui and I are 800 meters, and Daliang is 600 meters. Han Fei asked in confusion, "How do you increase your perception range?" Wu Xiaoxiao said, "There are visualization images." However, visualization diagrams were very expensive. Previously, the 5 of us had accumulated 100,000 points to exchange for the first level of a visualization technique. After that, it can be shared. Han Fei was stunned. "Visualization painting?" Wu Xiaoxiao said, "Don't you have one?" "Captain, your perception exceeded 3,000 meters yesterday. Don't tell me you don't have a visualization diagram." Han Fei pondered for a moment. So to speak, the God-scaring painting was a very powerful visualization diagram? If he said that he cultivated it through a visualization diagram, wouldn't the God-scaring painting be too unbelievable and attract other people's attention? So, Han Fei instantly said with a smile, "I don't. I grew by eating soul crystals." "What?" All 4 of them, including Leng Hui, looked at Han Fei in shock. "You ate soul crystals?" Wu Xiaoxiao exclaimed, even level 1 soul crystals require 3,000 points to exchange for one. Level 2 soul crystals can be exchanged for at least 30,000 points. Also, as your perception range increases, eating them doesn't seem to be very effective. Captain, how many soul crystals have you eaten? Han Fei coughed and said, well, when I was in the level 3 fishery, I ate about 1,000 of them by chance. I bought them with money, not by force. Everyone, at that time, a picture popped up in their heads. They were drooling at the thought that this jerk cultivated with soul crystals as if they were candy. Gu Daliang took a deep breath. Poverty limits my imagination. Yu Lingyun and the others secretly sighed. We don't understand the world of the rich. All of a sudden, Leng Hui was delighted. He launched his fishing hook, followed by Yu Lingyun and Wu Xiaoxiao. Yu Lingyun said, it's a silver-scaled fish. Attack it from 3 sides and don't let it run away. Gu Daliang immediately stabilized the boat and grinned in midair. In Han Fei's perception, it was a long fish that was emitting silver light. It was about 3 meters long and not slow at all. When the hook was 200 meters away from it, the big fish had already sensed it and was fleeing quickly. Unfortunately, the 3 fishing hooks were launched at the same time and were not slow at all. After a minute, the big fish was finally caught by Leng Hui's hook. Then, Yu Lingyun's and Wu Xiaoxiao's hooks followed. A big fish was pulled out of the sea. Yu Lingyun roared, Daliang, lower the boat. Xiao, freeze it. Han Fei saw that 3 silver scales on the silver-scaled fish darted out in the blink of an eye, trying to cut the fishing line. Yu Lingyun and the others hurried to shake the fishing line. But Wu Xiaoxiao's fishing line was still cut. However, the moment the fishing line was cut, Wu Xiaoxiao had already jumped down from midair. 1,000 leaves that looked like snowflakes had drifted past. In the blink of an eye, the silver-scaled fish was covered in frost and frozen. A moment later, the silver-scaled fish was dragged to the boat. Han Fei looked at the silver-scaled fish, and information popped up. Name: a silver-scaled fish. Introduction: this is a type of silver-armored fish that boasts tough defense abilities. The silver-scaled fish is ferocious and has a shocking bite force. There are 3 silver wheels on its tail. When they are fully activated, they are as powerful as high-quality spiritual weapons. Level 42 quality rare spiritual energy greater than 1,617 points. Effect: it can broaden the veins and enhance spiritual power if it's eaten over a long period of time. Collectible: a silver scales. Han Fei didn't find the fish unusual when he saw it. It was just a rare creature. The 3 scales could be made into weapons, but they weren't big. But the scale wasn't big, so what could it do? Seeing Han Fei's indifference, Wu Xiaoxiao couldn't help but say sweetly, Captain, this is a silver-scaled fish. Its meat is delicious, and its scales are very tough. Each of them is worth 500 points. We're going to make a fortune. Han Fei thought of something. It does look good. Why don't we stew it tonight? Immediately, Wu Xiaoxiao blocked the silver-scaled fish with her body, and Leng Hui behind her killed the silver-scaled fish and threw it into his sea-swallowing seashell. Han Fei said with a wry smile, do you really have to do that? Just take the scales. They're delicious. Wouldn't it be a shame not to eat them? Wu Xiaoxiao pouted. Sell them for money. Han Fei waved his hand lazily. Fine, fine. You can do whatever you want with the fish that you caught. I can catch them myself, all right? As he talked, Han Fei launched the blue sea wandering dragon rod and landed more than 2,000 meters away. The hook and line disappeared without a trace as soon as they fell into the water. In the next moment, he activated Thousand Twining, and a big fish flew close. Then, a silver-scaled fish was added to the boat. Han Fei smacked his lips and said, can we eat this one now? Let's make a deal. I'll steam this one and won't sell it. Wu Xiaoxiao opened her mouth wide and exclaimed. She then grabbed Han Fei's arm. We can sell it for money. Okay. Han Fei raised his head. I won't sell it. I want to eat it. Yu Lingyun, however, changed her expression. Wait, don't you find it strange? Leng Hui nodded. Silver-scaled fish are not gregarious fish. It doesn't seem right that two of them have appeared at the same time. Han Fei smiled. What's wrong with that? They're rare fish. There's nothing special about them. Yu Lingyun shook her head. Daliang, circle around and see if there's a third silver-scaled fish. Then, Yu Lingyun looked at Han Fei. Captain, you have a wide range of perception. You must be careful. If there's a third one, we might have run into a silver shark. Huh? Silver shark? What's that? Wu Xiaoxiao's eyes widened. Really? If it's a silver shark. Captain, spread out your senses. The silver shark is good stuff. It has blue fins that look like wings and is silver all over. It's an exotic creature. It's very valuable. Han Fei was rather curious too. He nodded and said to Gu Daliang, Daliang, circle around this area within 50 kilometers. I'll spread out my senses. Gu Daliang nodded. Okay. The fishing boat suddenly accelerated and tripled its speed. Han Fei's senses quickly scanned the bottom of the water. On the third circle, Han Fei suddenly opened his eyes. Stop. Han Fei rose up solemnly and threw the fishing rod in his hand 1,000 meters to the west. The hook entered the water. Spiritual energy surged out, and the hook turned into a fish, a big fish as big as the silver-scaled fish. The silver-scaled fish that Han Fei transformed with the winding snake technique was slightly different from the real silver-scaled fish. After all, it was made of spiritual energy. Therefore, its spiritual energy content was very high. If the silver shark was vigilant enough, it might not be fooled. However, as long as it was a fish, it might not be able to resist the temptation of spiritual energy. The silver-scaled fish transformed by spiritual energy swam on the bottom of the sea. It swam 5 or 6 kilometers from west to south. The blue-silver single-horned fish slowly swam by 500 meters away. At that moment, Han Fei sensed that the single-horned fish changed color. Its body turned silver and white, and it began to approach Han Fei's silver-scaled fish in disguise. Wu Xiaoxiao said in a low voice, Captain, did you notice it? Han Fei said, don't talk. The 3,200 votes will be added at about 10 o'clock in the evening. Let me take a rest and start the battle immediately. Anyway, you'll see the 3,500 votes before you wake up tomorrow. End of this chapter. Chapter 615. Han Fei had caught exotic creatures more than once, but he had never fished one before. The silver shark was lurking. Han Fei controlled the silver-scaled fish to stop cautiously. Then, he looked around and continued to swim. The silver shark was getting closer and closer, 300 meters. 200 meters. 100 meters, all of a sudden, a streak of light burst out. In the blink of an eye, the horn poked Han Fei's silver-scaled fish. However, as soon as the horn poked, spiritual energy burst out. The silver shark immediately realized that something was wrong and was about to slip away. However, Han Fei had already activated the flash hook technique and hooked the hook into the silver shark's mouth. Then, he used thousand twining to tie up the silver shark. However, exotic creatures were exotic creatures after all. The thousand twining was only half tied up, and the other half was dodged by the silver shark's rapid sprint. Bam! The fishing boat Han Fei was on was suddenly pulled by a huge force. The whole fishing boat was falling quickly. Han Fei shouted, stabilize the fishing boat, or I won't have any leverage. Hardly had Han Fei said that when lightning-like light burst out from the horn of the silver shark in the water. The speed of the entire silver shark was doubled. Han Fei could still resist it. However, the fishing boat that was suspended in midair couldn't bear the huge force and was out of control. Leng Hui, Yu Lingyun, and Wu Xiaoxiao had jumped off the boat. They were all excited at this moment. He must have hooked it. The silver-scaled fish couldn't be so powerful, so it must be a silver shark. Han Fei stomped and leaped into the air. He abandoned the fishing boat. If he wanted to catch exotic creatures, he had to do it in the sea. Fishing in the sky was too passive unless he improved his skills. In the sky, Han Fei was dragged forward like a bolt of lightning by the silver shark and fell into the sea in the next second. The moment he entered the sea, Han Fei performed the 64-dimensional fish dragon dance while retracting the fishing rod. Although Han Fei hadn't mastered this combat technique yet, it was faster than the shadow swimming art. Since Han Fei was retracting his fishing rod, he was getting closer and closer to the silver shark. Yu Lingyun and the others were left behind by Han Fei. Han Fei sensed that he was more than a kilometer away from Yu Lingyun and the others. At this time, Goldie immediately attached to his body. Han Fei almost turned into a streak of light and rushed at the silver shark. When Han Fei saw the silver shark naturally saw Han Fei too. Therefore, a silver thorn of light shot at Han Fei in an instant. Han Fei had a bad feeling. This thorn seemed to be quite powerful. Immediately, he grabbed the fishing rod with one hand and clenched his fist with the other, activating the art of invincibility. He only had time to throw out 3 punches, and the silver light had already pierced through the 3 fist imprints. Fuck, so strong. Han Fei didn't dare to neglect it. Because there was a touch of blue on the thorn, Han Fei suspected that it was poison. Although he had taken the venomous tulip, it was an anti-poison fruit from the level 3 fishery. Han Fei wasn't sure if he could resist the poison from the unknown place. Immediately, Han Fei took out an ultra-quality spiritual shield. Clang! A harsh collision sound came into Han Fei's ears. The shield was pierced through, and a silver spike was stuck in it. The front half and the back half of the spike went through Han Fei's neck. Gudu! Han Fei swallowed, threw the shield into Forge the Universe, and accelerated again. When he was only 100 meters away from the silver shark, data appeared in Han Fei's eyes. Name: Longsnout Silver Shark. Introduction. The longsnout silver shark belongs to the order Silver Shark. It has heavenly silver thorns on its back, which carry blue-silver poison, which can kill hanging fishers. The longsnout silver shark is extremely fast. Its brain and the horn are fused into one, which contains terrifying electric currents. Level 45 Quality Exotic. It contains spiritual energy greater than 3,405 points. Effect: after eating, it can strengthen the body and increase resistance to electric currents. Collectible Heavenly Silver Thorns. When Han Fei saw the information of this longsnout silver horn, he saw this guy turn around and aim its horn at Han Fei. Shoot! A silver bolt of lightning broke through the water and darted at Han Fei. Han Fei's face changed, and he punched at it with a level 3 fist imprint. In fact, he could use the draw technique. However, the horn on the silver shark's head seemed to be quite awesome. If it was damaged, wouldn't it be a great loss? Although Han Fei knew that the 3 fist imprints couldn't block the horn, he still chose to do so. However, Han Fei had already activated a spiritual energy protective cover. Then, he stomped on the ground, and a 6-pattern spiritual energy shield surrounded his body. This was the only defensive array that Han Fei had learned that could be activated with one stomp, the 6 spirit armor. Qi Lu. The longsnout silver shark sensed danger, and the electric currents had all fallen on Han Fei. Buzz buzz buzz, Han Fei trembled all over like a Parkinson's disease. However, he had become used to taking the electric currents and the lightning strikes. So, when the big horn was about to pierce him, the big shield appeared again. Clang! Boom! Crack! The horn, penetrated by an ultra-quality spiritual weapon, shattered the 6 spirit armor and the spiritual energy protective cover, and the tip of the horn touched Han Fei's body. Attach! The moment little fatty attached to Han Fei, his whole body trembled along with Han Fei. Little fatty's voice echoed in Han Fei's head, Do you want to kill me? As it spoke, little fatty's tentacles had already latched onto the long snout silver shark's body. Then, Han Fei and many tentacles were trembling and shivering. Han Fei replied, I was afraid that the fish would run away. Little Fatty scoffed, You could have summoned that shrimp. Han Fei scoffed, the nine-tailed mantis shrimp can only tie it up. What if the silver shark has other methods? It can't run away now that you've latched onto it. Little Fatty really wanted to slap its stupid master to death at this moment. Did you just say that I was electrocuted with you? Was that what a human would do? By the time Yu Lingyun and the other two caught up, Han Fei had been shivering for a long time. When the three of them were still more than 500 meters away, Han Fei said telepathically, Don't come any closer. The electric shocks aren't over yet. The three of them, half an hour passed. Han Fei sat on the fishing boat aching all over, and his body shivered from time to time. Glancing at the ultra-quality spiritual shield that had 2 holes in it, Han Fei pulled out the silver stings in disdain. Then, he tossed the shield to Gu Daliang and said, It's yours. Gu Daliang's mouth was wide open. This ultra-quality spiritual weapon is great, but you're giving it to me with 2 holes on it? I have to be able to fix the holes first. Han Fei was quite disgusted by the shield. It had been through a lot with him, and it was time to retire after it was pierced through. As for maintenance, Han Fei was too lazy to use Forge the Universe. Wu Xiaoxiao was still looking at Han Fei weirdly. Captain, so you shot down the long-snout silver shark on your own? That's a long-snout silver shark. The silver stings are the best materials to craft ultra-quality spiritual weapons. The long-snout silver shark has such terrifying electric currents, and you resisted it on your own? Yu Lingyun and Leng Hui looked at Han Fei as if he were a monster. Although you've lost 1 supreme-grade spiritual weapon, you've gained 2 or even 3 supreme-grade spiritual weapons all at once. If the long-snout silver shark was used well, it could definitely be made into a couple of ultra-quality spiritual weapons. Yu Lingyun said, It's a shame that it's dead. Otherwise, this long-snout silver shark could have been sold for 30,000 points of credit. Leng Hui added, I always thought that it would be a regular silver shark. I didn't expect that it would be a long-snout silver shark. Han Fei looked at the bloody hole on the long-snout silver shark's stomach, which was a sign that its blood had been drained by Little Fatty. He had forgotten to tell Little Fatty to keep him alive. However, Little Fatty sucked the silver shark to death after only 1 moment. Han Fei licked his lips and said, Cough, cough. Well, I've changed my mind. I haven't eaten exotic creatures yet. Let's stew the silver shark tonight. No. The faces of the 4 people on the boat changed greatly. Wu Xiaoxiao blocked the long-snout silver shark with her petite body. Sell it for money. Han Fei pushed Wu Xiaoxiao's head away. Are you only interested in money? Are you idiots? What's your purpose as an investigator? Yu Lingyun stared at Han Fei angrily. To defend the skeleton shore. Han Fei said angrily, Don't you have any pursuits? For example, getting 3 or 4 stars. Yu Lingyun did. Of course we do. Advanced investigators have plenty of time, and their training speed is faster. Han Fei said angrily, Let me tell you, you're wrong. You want to make money, don't you? Wu Xiaoxiao nodded. Yes. Han Fei asked again, What's the purpose of making money? Wu Xiaoxiao tilted her head. To buy equipment and techniques to improve our strength. Han Fei asked again, Eating the silver shark meat is the fastest way to improve my strength. Why don't you eat it? To be honest, I wouldn't take anyone else to eat it. I'm only giving you a share because I'm your captain. Wu Xiaoxiao thought for a long time. How much strength can you improve by eating the silver shark? Han Fei grinned and said, Look, isn't the silver shark sturdy? Is the electric current strong? I bet that eating the silver shark can not only temper one's body but also increase one's resistance to electric currents. Daliang, don't you think so? You can temper your body. Gu Daliang swallowed his saliva. That seems to be the case. Han Fei looked at Wu Xiaoxiao and the rest of them. Look, only armorists and soul warriors know how to temper their bodies. You Lingyun, you're such a disappointment to me. Why can't you figure out what's going on as a soul warrior? Yu Lingyun was dumbfounded. Wu Xiaoxiao was stunned for a long time. Nonsense. You just want to eat the silver shark. The error-free chapter of Fishing God will be updated on Green Bean. There are no advertisements on this website. Please collect and recommend Green Bean. If you like Fishing God, please collect. Fishing God Green Bean updates the fastest. Chapter 6:16. That night, Han Fei and the other four snuck into the transverse mountain to have a hot pot. At this moment, the horn on the 5-meter-long silver shark's head and the sky silver stings on its back had been plucked by Han Fei. Its blue wings had been cut open by Han Fei, and a lot of poison flowed out. The poison sac had also been completely removed by Han Fei. Han Fei didn't try the poison rashly. He planned to go to the island and see if there were any anti-poison fruits on the island during his vacation. He also wanted to learn about the common poisons and anti-poison fruits on the Scattered Stars Island. At this moment, the big fish had been cut in half by Han Fei, and he had to share the other half with Lu Renkuang and the others. Han Fei washed the fish meat, and the fish oil in the pot was already boiling. Then, Han Fei threw more than 10 kinds of spiritual fruits into it. In an instant, the intense aroma spread out. Wu Xiaoxiao and the others all swallowed hard. Even Leng Hui, who was the coldest, and Yu Lingyun, who was the toughest, couldn't help but swallow. Han Fei tossed half of the fish into the sky. As knife light flashed, the fish meat rolled into the pot of oil, and the flames immediately rose dozens of meters high. Han Fei grabbed the pot with one hand and began to stir it. The golden oil was flashing in the flames like dazzling stars. Han Fei grabbed a mass of water from the void and threw it into the pot. A sizzling sound echoed in his ears. The sound was just a sound, but it seemed to have turned into an alluring fragrance for Wu Xiaoxiao and the others. Even their taste buds were opened. Wu Xiaoxiao scratched her head and almost wanted to open the pot to see if the fish was cooked. Han Fei grinned. Wait for half an hour. Let the energy disperse in the soup and let the spiritual energy circulate in the pot. It'll be ready soon. Gudu. Sitting on the ground, Wu Xiaoxiao looked up at Han Fei. Captain, just tell us. Who are you exactly? Han Fei. Why should I tell you? Food is just my hobby. Right, let me ask you something. Who wants the horn and the sky silver stings? Everybody was stunned, and Yu Lingyun said quickly, you don't want them? You killed it. We don't have the ability to kill a long-snout silver shark. Han Fei grinned. It doesn't matter. When I was cooking just now, I thought about it. Since you guys are going to be my teammates for a while, why don't I increase your combat power now? I can refine this horn and the sky silver spike into supreme grade spirit artifacts, and I can even sell them to you on credit. Yes, I'm not giving it to you for free, it's on credit. You'll have to pay me back with points in the future. Hiss. Leng Hui's eyes flickered. Really? Han Fei smiled. Of course, it's just a few ultra-quality spiritual weapons. I'm not short of money. Yu Lingyun took a deep breath and glared at Han Fei. Are you not afraid that we will die on the way? Han Fei sneered. According to you, how much does an ultra-quality spiritual weapon cost? Leng Hui blurted out, a supreme-grade spiritual weapon usually costs around 10,000 points. If it has a sealed spirit, I'm afraid it'll cost 30,000 points. Han Fei asked in surprise, so expensive? Sealing a spirit is so expensive? Yu Lingyun said, that's only the price of sealing a creature below level 40. If the creature is above level 40, the price will skyrocket. Someone once sealed a level 58 exotic creature, and the ultra-quality spiritual weapon was sold for 800,000 points. Wu Xiaoxiao nodded quickly. Above level 45, almost every level has a different price. It's very expensive. Gu Daliang nodded. Yes, and the creatures sealed have different prices according to their quality. The exotic ones are particularly expensive. Han Fei was dumbfounded. Suddenly, he had an idea. Why did he think that an ultra-quality spiritual weapon was useless? Was it because the creatures he sealed were too weak? His blue sea wandering dragon daggers all had mess-swallowing worms sealed in them. Therefore, if an ultra-quality spiritual weapon was broken, it might not be because the level of the spiritual weapon was not high enough, but because the sealing effect was different. For a moment, Han Fei's breath became rapid. Damn it, why was he so stupid? Why didn't he try sealing souls on some tough creatures? What if he could seal a powerful ultra-quality spiritual weapon out of them? Then, Han Fei calculated in his heart. It was too easy to make money. An ultra-quality spiritual weapon was sold for 800,000 points. What kind of ultra-quality spiritual weapon was it exactly? Immediately, Han Fei swallowed and looked at them. It's up to you. I'm going to visit my seniors in a few days. What do you want to seal souls with? It would be best if you can catch them. I'll give you a 30% discount. Huh? Gu Daliang rose quickly. A 30% discount? Han Fei raised his head and said, of course. I don't care about the money. No matter what creatures you catch, I'll give you a 30% discount. So, who wants them? Leng Hui immediately said, I want the sky silver stings to be made into a pair of daggers. As for the creatures sealed in them, we still have 2 days to investigate. We'll check them out then. Yu Lingyun said, I want the horn to be made into a sword. As for the creatures sealed in them, we'll see. Wu Xiaoxiao exclaimed, wow. That's not enough. Han Fei immediately grinned and said, that's fine. You don't have enough materials. I'll give them to you. Don't worry about where I get them. I'll give you the weapons, and you can pay me back slowly. Wu Xiaoxiao's eyes glittered. I want an ultra-quality battle suit and the best demon-level art. Han Fei was briefly stunned. A battle suit. The materials of a battle suit are much more than those of a saber or a sword. How are you going to pay me back? Wu Xiaoxiao said in a hurry, I'll give them to you. Han Fei said in disdain, mind your image. I have a girlfriend. Fine, I'll satisfy you. You can pay me back according to your points. Han Fei looked at Gu Daliang, and Gu Daliang said, I want an ultra-quality shield and a one-handed broadsword. Han Fei thought for a moment. Okay. That's not a problem. So, you'll be selling yourselves to me, won't you? I won't give you any more than that. If you die in the ocean and can't pay me back, I'll suffer a great loss. Wu Xiaoxiao and the others didn't care whether or not they owed him money. They were poor anyway. Also, once their equipment was renewed, their combat ability would be greatly increased. By then, it would be much easier for them to get points. While Yu Lingyun and the others were delighted, they were also guessing Han Fei's identity. But at this moment, Han Fei's mind was elsewhere. He had to listen to old Bai. He would go to the refining hall and get himself an identity as a refiner on his vacation. Then, he would go to the refining hall and seal souls for other people. Well, sealing souls would be too eye-catching. He would have to refine ultra-quality spiritual weapons for other people. When the conditions were ripe, he would be able to seal souls and make a fortune. Han Fei wondered if he was being too outrageous. He had plenty of materials. He could just ask the demon purification pot to refine them. In fact, the consumption of spiritual energy was only 500,000 points, which could be made up for with 6 or 7 spiritual fruits. Wasn't it a bit outrageous to sell them 10,000 points of points? But on second thought, Han Fei realized that it would be more expensive for them to buy from other people. As the saying went, one should keep the goodies in one's own field. When the time came, he would monopolize the business of the 8th Battalion and let the 300 people think about paying him back every day. It would be like collecting rent every day. Even if each person gave him 100 points a day, he would still have a net income of 30,000 points a day. Although, occasionally, there would be unexpected risks. Generally speaking, it was definitely not a loss. Besides, the cost was so low. He wouldn't be afraid of losing money. Han Fei remembered that there were still 2 big bones, 2 big chains, and the 1,000-meter-long big red trunk in Forge the Universe that he hadn't used yet. Immediately, he felt that they could be put to good use. As for what he could exchange the points for, well, he definitely needed a lot of spirit awakening fluid, anti-poison fruits, and soul crystals. His spiritual power seemed to be stuck. He could take his time. That's a great deal. Han Fei subconsciously blurted it out. Wu Xiaoxiao was confused. Captain, what's a great deal? Han Fei immediately shrank his neck. Oh, no. Well, I mean, you're really a great deal. I really envy you for having such an excellent captain like me. Everyone, Wu Xiaoxiao and the others were talking to each other telepathically. Sister Lingyun, do you think geniuses are all so different? Yu Lingyun scoffed. There are no geniuses in this world. Do you really think the long-snout silver shark is so easy to deal with? Among us, even Daliang wouldn't be able to withstand that electric current. Gu Daliang nodded. Indeed, our captain's physique is too unbelievable. Leng Hui added, we have to improve ourselves as soon as possible. Otherwise, I'm afraid that Han Fei will be transferred away soon. The moment Leng Hui's words left his mouth, they immediately felt the pressure. Yes, in their eyes, Han Fei was too excellent. Even they found it hard to believe that such a person was chosen as a captain. They felt that it was a great deal. In the next 2 days, Han Fei led them to investigate the skeleton shore. It was indeed quite dangerous, especially in the area 200 kilometers away. During this time, they encountered another strange creature. However, that creature was a long worm, and it slipped away from the ground. However, the creatures sealed in Yu Lingyun's team were all caught. But because the creatures had to be alive, and sea-swallowing seashells couldn't hold living creatures, they were all tied under Han Fei's treehouse. In the dead of night, not a sound could be heard. Han Fei sneakily carried the creatures under the treehouse into the depths of the forest. The error-free chapters of Fishing God will continue to be updated on Green Bean. There are no advertisements on this site. Please collect and recommend Green Bean. If you like Fishing God, please collect. Fishing God Green Bean updates the fastest. Chapter 617. On the first day of his vacation, Han Fei was still sleeping in his treehouse. He refined 5 ultra-quality spiritual weapons last night and sealed souls in them. He toiled for half the night and even practiced the 108 Desolate God body once before going to bed. After only an hour of sleep, Han Fei was woken up by Wu Xiaoxiao's cute voice. Han Fei heaved a helpless sigh. Some people were born with a lowly voice, but some were born ugly. It was torture. Han Fei had experienced it firsthand. Han Fei craned his head. What are you shouting for? I'm asleep. Wu Xiaoxiao shouted, Captain, it's not good. The sealed creature that we captured was stolen by someone else. Han Fei rubbed his eyes. Stolen? My senior took them away last night and said that the weapons would be delivered in a day or 2. Huh? Wu Xiaoxiao's eyes widened. Really? Han Fei said, why would I lie to you? My senior is a 6-star. Well, he came at midnight. Of course you don't know. At this moment, Yu Lingyun and the other 2 walked close too. Hearing what Han Fei said, they were all intrigued. 6-star. Did Han Fei really have a senior on the Scattered Stars Island? If he was a 6-star expert, wouldn't he be a hidden fisher? However, Yu Lingyun asked calmly, Captain, are you going to scavenge? Han Fei shook his head and climbed down from the treehouse. No, I have something to do on the island. May I ask where the command room is? The command room? Yu Lingyun instantly thought of something. You're going to find your teammates, aren't you? I went to pick you up the other day. That's the west side of the Scattered Stars city. There are 2 statues of soul warriors more than 50 meters tall holding long sticks in front of the command room. Han Fei nodded. Where is the logistics division? Gu Daliang immediately said, everybody knows that. There's a huge ball on the top of the building of the logistics division. When we use our points to exchange for things, we do so there. Han Fei's eyes glittered. Wow! That's awesome. Han Fei was lost for words. This fatty was truly lucky. He wondered if he could ask Lu Renkuang to get in through the back door. Han Fei didn't ask where the Dark Hunter Legion and the Island Patrol team were. I'm afraid it's not fixed. I should find Lu Renkuang and Luo Xiaobai first. Maybe they will know. Han Fei was about to part ways with Yu Lingyun and the others, when he suddenly turned around and asked, what about the refining hall? How do I get to the refining hall? Yu Lingyun said, that's even more obvious. On the door of the Hall of Smithing, there was a huge sculpture of a hammer that could be recognized with a single glance. Moreover, the refining hall and the logistics division are quite close to each other, less than 3,000 meters apart. You can see them just by looking up. Han Fei smiled faintly and said, okay, that's fine. Go scavenge. Don't run inside. At that time, when the positions were arranged, only Han Fei and Xia Shaochan had 2 days off. Luo Xiaobai and the others all had a day off, so Han Fei wasn't sure if he could find them today. Controlling the fishing boat, Han Fei flew all the way and encountered a few big birds. However, when these birds saw fishing boats from a distance, they would detour, as if they were rather scared of humans. Han Fei didn't intend to explore the transverse mountain now. He had a lot of things to do. About half an hour later, the appearance of the Scattered Stars city appeared in front of his eyes. The flow of people on the street was like that of the CBD business district. The buildings were mostly made of grayish-white stones, and the sculptures of seaweeds, fish, and insects could be seen everywhere. Han Fei always saw people walking on the road carrying big fish and big crabs. They were all heading for the refining hall. Needless to say, they were carrying living creatures to the refining hall to seal souls. Han Fei couldn't help but sigh. Sealing souls was really a good skill. Han Fei's fishing boat landed at a low altitude, and he had already landed at the gate of the logistics division. The logistics division occupied a very large area, with a length and width of 10,000 meters. The shape of the building was arc-shaped, with a huge ball on top of the building, which was very easy to recognize. Han Fei walked in from the luxurious gate, only to find that it was overcrowded. The lobby was like a large square, with 2 open doors on the left and right sides. However, outsiders didn't seem to be allowed to enter. He only saw some people constantly transporting things inside, and no one except the staff went in. The only thing left was an extra-large curved counter. Han Fei looked at the number on the counter, and the largest number was already 500. This meant that there were an average of 500 counters in this place for people to exchange materials. Han Fei glanced at his waist tag, only to find that it was blank. As a 0, it would be a bit too embarrassing to go to the counter. So, Han Fei grabbed the waist tag and shouted to Lu Renkuang's aura, Lu Renkuang, are you there? Are you there? The next second, he heard Lu Renkuang's response, I'm here, but I'm at work. I'm too busy to spare time. You stay here and contact Xiaobai to see if she is available. The waist tag seemed to emit a resonance, and the voice could fall directly in his head. Seeing that Lu Renkuang was busy, Han Fei asked, then are you off tomorrow? Lu Renkuang responded, yes, I'm free tomorrow. Don't you have 2 days off? Stay in the city tonight and find a place to stay. Next door, near the lake, there are several rows of carnival clubs. You can stay there. Han Fei was about to respond, when he heard Lu Renkuang say again, forget it, you'd better not live there. If Xia Shaochan finds out, she'll kill me. Han Fei couldn't help but wonder, why would she kill you? Lu Renkuang replied, there are a lot of girls there. Han Fei, Han Fei was speechless. Was there a place in the Scattered Stars city that blatantly engaged in sexual activities? Han Fei said angrily, "Fine. Continue with your work. I'll contact Xiaobai." Lu Renquang nodded. Okay. Because the tactical command center was not far from here, Han Fei saw the two statues just now. So, standing in the hall of the logistics division, Han Fei directly contacted them. Xiaobai, are you there?" However, there was no response. Han Fei called her twice, but there was still no response. Immediately, Han Fei knew that Luo Xiaobai must have gone to investigate around the island and should not be here. After all, this method of contact had a distance limit, unlike the mobile phones in his previous life. He tried to call Zhang Xuanyu and Xia Xiaochan again, but neither of them was there. This made him a little embarrassed. The only one here was still busy. Where could he go? Han Fei thought for a moment. Well, let's go to the refining hall and see what's going on there. Before coming to the Scattered Stars Island, Old Bai had already given Han Fei a refining book. However, that book seemed to be the basic knowledge of refining, which described how to refine in general, how to quench different materials, how to use spiritual energy, whether to use open fire, and so on. As for the true method of refining tools, it was not recorded in that ancient book of refining tools. Obviously, Old Bai wanted Han Fei to come to the Scattered Stars Island and look for it himself, or the Thug Academy didn't have such books at all. The refining hall was much larger than Han Fei had imagined. It was about half the size of the logistics division. As soon as Han Fei stepped into the refining hall, he felt a wave of heat surging towards him. That was the residual heat of high-temperature forging. Although there were many people who came to the refining hall, they were much fewer than those who went to the logistics division. Although the hall here was also very large, there were only 100 counters. However, in the center of the lobby of the refining hall, there was a row of round counters, on which was written "Shopping Guide." As the name suggested, a shopping guide was to take you shopping. Han Fei immediately understood. What weapons ordinary people needed, they couldn't find so quickly in such a large refining hall. Then, if he found a shopping guide, he could quickly and accurately find where he needed to go to forge. That should be the reason. So, Han Fei immediately walked forward. Seeing Han Fei looking at her, a girl immediately stood up. Her eyes fell directly on Han Fei's waist tag, and then she said with a smile, "Excuse me, do you need a shopping guide?" Han Fei also glanced at the girl's waist tag. 2 stars. Is she here to be a shopping guide? Han Fei said, "This is my first time here. Can you introduce me?" The girl immediately walked out of the counter and came to Han Fei, 10 points or 10 high-quality pearls, and I can talk to you for half an hour. Han Fei flipped his hand, took out 10 high-quality pearls, and handed them over. The girl said with a smile, "Do you want to ask yourself, or do you want me to tell you from the beginning?" Han Fei thought for a moment. "I'll ask myself. If I want to become a refiner, do I have to take the test for a refiner's certificate?" First update. Asking for votes, end of this chapter. Chapter 618. The girl looked at Han Fei up and down and then nodded. Yes, there are 5 levels of refiners, from 1 star to 5 star. Of course, below 1 star refiners, there are also apprentice refiners. However, apprentice refiners can only forge weapons like magic weapons at most, and they will eventually be sent to the 36 towns. As for 1 star blacksmiths, they were already capable of forging low-tier and middle-tier spirit artifacts. Even the most formidable 1 star blacksmiths have a certain chance of forging a high-tier spirit artifact. Han Fei interrupted, "Wait a minute, then if I want to be tested, do I have to start from an apprentice refiner?" The girl shook her head. "No. If you have the foundation, you only need to pay an assessment fee and you can be tested immediately. However, you have to forge a low-quality spiritual weapon, a mid-quality spiritual weapon, a high-quality spiritual weapon, and so on." Han Fei grinned. "Got it. Go on." The girl said, starting from a 2-star refiner, the success rate of forging high-quality spiritual weapons is as high as 70%. The success rate of forging ultra-quality spiritual weapons can be as high as 50%. The basic condition of a 3-star refiner is to be able to seal spirits. Creatures below level 30 are enough, and the success rate needs to be 50%. And the success rate of forging ultra-quality spiritual weapons must be no less than 50%. Otherwise, you will be demoted. A 4-star refiner success rate of forging ultra-quality spiritual weapons must be no less than 70%, and the success rate of sealing creatures above level 40 must be no less than 60%. Otherwise, you will be demoted. A 5-star refiner success rate of forging ultra-quality spiritual weapons must be no less than 90%. The success rate of sealing creatures below level 50 must be no less than 70%. If you fail 3 times, you have to complete the spirit for free. From level 50 to level 60, the success rate is more than 30%. If you fail 10 times, you have to complete the spirit for free. After hearing the girl's words, Han Fei looked weird. Doesn't that mean that I'm already a 5-star blacksmith right now? However, that was all thanks to the demon purification pot. All he needed to do was to throw materials into the demon purification pot. As for real refining, he didn't know anything about it now. The reason why Old Bai asked him to learn refining was that he wanted him to cover up this point. Han Fei immediately said, "Can I visit the refining scene in the refining hall first?" The girl was slightly taken aback. If you want to learn armament refining, this place also accepts armament refining apprentices. Not only can you visit, but you can also get paid. Han Fei shook his head. I don't have time for that. I need to visit first and then make a decision. The young lady replied, of course. However, 3-star and above blacksmiths are generally not allowed to watch while they are forging, unless they make an appointment in advance. Therefore, you can only watch apprentice craftsmen and level 1 and level 2 craftsmen, and the fees are different. It only cost 10 high-quality pearls to visit an apprentice refiner. It cost 50 high-quality pearls to visit a 1-star refiner. It costs 500 high-quality pearls to visit a 2-star refiner. Han Fei thought for a moment. Show me around each of the 3 levels. I have the money. After that, Han Fei took out a fish skin bag of high-quality pearls and gave them to the girl. Count it. Clearly, the price of a 2-star blacksmith would skyrocket. Most likely, the price of a 3-star weaponsmith would be even higher. Han Fei didn't intend to waste his money. He only needed to see how normal people refined. What was the process? What kind of equipment was needed? Then, Han Fei would decide how he should master this refining skill. After all, refining was also a skill, and the demon purification pot could probably deduce it too. After following the salesperson through the front hall, Han Fei immediately felt violent spiritual energy blowing in his face. The entire inner hall was hot, and the temperature was dozens of degrees higher than outside. But surprisingly, Han Fei didn't hear the sound of hammers. There was nothing but silence here, and only violent spiritual energy was surging. In Han Fei's sight, there were rows of black stone houses. On the door of each house, there was a misty cyclone door. Han Fei couldn't see through these cyclones with the naked eye. Han Fei was stunned. Are all refining rooms here? The salesperson smiled and said, there are 1,082 refining rooms in the refining hall. Of them, 800 are spiritual energy refining rooms, and the remaining 282 are taken from hot magma, undersea lava, and heavenly fire. Han Fei couldn't help but ask, is there any difference between the two? The salesperson said, using spiritual energy to directly forge weapons is the mainstream and the easiest refining method. Flames are not needed, and only violent spiritual energy is used as flames for hammering and forging. As for those who use heavenly flame and underwater magma, it is usually the process of changing to a higher level of refining techniques after discovering that there are many deficiencies in the forging of spirit artifacts. Han Fei thought of something. Give me one more. After I see the refining methods with spiritual energy, I want to see how heavenly fire and magma are forged. The salesperson said awkwardly, that may take a while, because there are very few 2-star refiners in these 282 refining rooms, so you may need to make an appointment. Han Fei said, then I'll make an appointment. The salesperson communicated with someone for a while with her star waist tag. After a while, she looked at Han Fei and said, refining room no. 821 will start refining in 3 hours. It's a 3-star refiner. However, if you want to watch him refine weapons, you'll need 5,000 high-quality pearls. Han Fei immediately frowned. 5,000 high-quality pearls. That's 5,000 points. I'm just going to take a look. Is it so expensive? The salesperson explained, because 3-star refiners are all refiners who practice advanced refining techniques, their techniques are also very precious. Therefore, it's often more expensive to watch than to buy. Han Fei gritted his teeth. He couldn't catch a wolf without risking his life. If he wanted to learn refining techniques, he had to understand them clearly before he made a choice. So, Han Fei gave the salesperson 5,000 high-quality pearls on the spot. The salesperson was stunned and thought to herself, this guy only has 3 stars. Why is he so generous? After receiving the money, the salesperson immediately showed Han Fei the room. The first one to go was naturally the armament apprentice, which was also the apprentice armament master. When Han Fei just entered the refining room, he saw a young man about his age at first glance. However, his waist tag had 3 stars, which was the same level as Han Fei. This person even grinned at Han Fei when he saw him. The young man said, I guess you want to learn refining. I only know some basic refining techniques. I have nothing to hide. Let me get ready. I'll start refining in 100 seconds. Han Fei smiled and said, suit yourself. Good luck. Han Fei looked around the so-called spiritual energy refining room. The whole room was not big, only about 30 square meters. There were many weapons hanging on the walls of the room. From knives and swords, to axes, to sticks, hooks, and chains, there were more than 40 weapons. However, among these weapons, only one was a low-quality spiritual weapon, and the others were high-quality magic weapons. In the center of the room was a large stone platform, on which were placed sea iron bark, some magic weapon quality bamboo poles, stones, crystals, fish skin, fish bones, black iron, and other materials. On both sides of the large stone platform was a vat of spiritual spring. When he saw the spiritual spring, Han Fei couldn't help but raise his eyebrows, and he realized that learning refining seemed to burn a lot of spiritual energy. The young man said, to learn the basic refining method of spiritual energy, you need to learn a basic refining technique called the spirit fusing technique. It can melt spiritual energy and make it violent, achieving the effect of flames. The young man didn't use a hammer. He grabbed a piece of black iron, wrapped it in spiritual energy, and suspended it in the air. Han Fei felt that the spiritual energy wrapped around the black iron was gradually becoming violent. The temperature of the spiritual energy was rising. In Han Fei's eyes, spiritual energy spots were shattering and then seeping into this piece of black iron. The young man shouted, this is the spirit fusing technique. Melt spiritual energy and melt materials. The black iron was melting. However, the black iron didn't become smaller. There was not the slightest bit of the effect of taking the essence and discarding the dross. The young man used the same technique to melt 5 materials. Then, the young man suddenly took a deep breath, and the spiritual energy wrapped around the materials became more and more violent. In the end, the spiritual energy even showed signs of changing color. In the next moment, Han Fei saw a large amount of dross burst out of the materials along with the violent spiritual energy. The young man shouted, this is the spirit polishing technique, which can remove the impurities of the materials themselves. However, it can't completely remove them. After about 2 minutes, most of the materials were gone. Following which, a violent surge of spiritual energy enveloped the 5 materials and mixed them together. Under the guidance of the young man's spiritual energy, the shape of a long sword had already appeared. The young man shouted again, "Next is the spirit refining technique. The characteristics of the materials themselves are not compatible. If you want to completely fuse them, you have to increase the violence of the spiritual energy to the point where you can temper the 5 materials at the same time." Han Fei didn't say a word from beginning to end. He just watched the materials that were a little out of place gradually fuse. After about 3 minutes, a high-quality magic weapon had already appeared. When the youngster gradually extracted the berserk spiritual chi, a high-grade magic treasure was completed with a loud bang. However, Han Fei clearly felt that although this sword had reached the level of a high-quality magic weapon, the blade didn't seem to be perfect, mainly because it didn't look very sharp. The young man grabbed the long sword and looked at Han Fei with a smile. "This is the most elementary refining technique." Han Fei cupped his fists. "Thank you. I have 2 questions. First, you swallowed 3 spiritual springs this time. How much spiritual energy did you consume? Also, refining seems to have a high requirement on spiritual power. How many times can you refine a day?" The young man smiled awkwardly. "I consumed 18,000 points of spiritual energy. With my current spiritual power, I can only forge 8 of these weapons a day." Han Fei grinned. "Thank you." After reading it, Han Fei left. There was only one word in his mind: simple. Second update. Please vote. End of chapter. Chapter 6:19. The whole refining process lasted about 5 minutes, which was a little less than half an hour. Han Fei didn't stop at all and followed the shop assistant to the next place, the 1-star refining room. The refining room was also not big, and the treatment was similar to that of the apprentice refiner. The refiner himself was 2 or 3 years older than the apprentice refiner. It seemed that he was also a little more arrogant. However, since the apprentice had spent the money, the refiner didn't say that he was stingy. After all, there wasn't a big difference between a 1-star and an apprentice. The man looked at Han Fei. "I know you just went to the apprentice refiner's place. In fact, my refining process is no different from his. It's just that I'm more familiar with the spirit fusing technique, the spirit polishing technique, and the spirit refining technique. I won't tell you the process. You can watch it yourself." The 1-star refiner clapped his hand on the table, and the 8 materials flew up at the same time and were enveloped by a ball of spiritual energy. In the next moment, with the technique of the 1-star refiner, it only took less than 5 minutes for the materials to be completely melted. Then, it was the spirit polishing technique. This time, Han Fei clearly felt that it was different. When the materials were quenched, the spiritual energy seemed to have some kind of neutralization reaction with the materials, causing the colorless spiritual energy to become colored. This was quite obvious. In this step of quenching, the 1-star refiner was obviously much better than the experienced refiner, and it took him about 500 minutes to quench the materials. Han Fei clearly felt that the refined materials were very pure and seemed to have stimulated the characteristics of the materials. In the last step of the spirit refining technique, the 8 balls of materials were first mixed together like gurgling chemical materials, and then rushed left and right. After such a change for more than 5 minutes, a low-quality long knife of spiritual energy appeared. Han Fei didn't say a word from beginning to end. He only thanked the man after he finished refining and turned around to leave. After observing it twice, Han Fei put on a smile. The method of refining with spiritual energy was simple. This was the second time that Han Fei had come to this conclusion. When he entered the refining room of the 2-star refiner, the shop assistant said, 2-star refiners are the backbone of the refining hall. They refine a lot of weapons every day, so they may have a bad temper. Han Fei grinned. "It's okay. I won't talk." After entering the refining room, Han Fei noticed that the room seemed to be bigger than before. It was nearly 50 square meters. In this refining room, there were basically not many middle-grade and low-grade spiritual weapons. Most of them were high-grade and supreme-grade spiritual weapons. On the other hand, this 2-star blacksmith seemed to be in his 20s, and he actually possessed a 5-star emblem. In the blink of an eye, his rank was already significantly higher than that of a 1-star blacksmith. When Han Fei entered, the man was in the middle of spirit polishing. He glanced at Han Fei casually and said, "Watch yourself. Don't disturb me." Han Fei did not speak. The higher the level of a professional technician, the bigger their temper. This was a given, no matter where they were. This person's spirit tempering art was obviously much more advanced than the 1-star blacksmith's spirit tempering art. The spiritual energy seemed to have been ignited. All kinds of impurities, like sweat, were expelled from the spiritual energy mass. The materials refined by this person were still emitting a faint luster. From a piece of mystic crystal, Han Fei felt the golden hepta-chi, and from a piece of fish bone, he felt a trace of flexibility in it. In Han Fei's eyes, the violent spiritual energy was not dispersed but surrounded the material in a spiral or even a repulsive magnetic field. The spirit polishing here seemed to have reached the last stage. After only 100 seconds, it was time for spirit polishing. This time, the result was different from the previous 2 times. This person was forging an axe. The handle, grip, and blade of the axe were designed. Judging from the structure of the weapon, it was of a higher level. As for the materials, they were first fused and then interactively glued together. Han Fei realized that a 2-star blacksmith was much better at details than a 1-star blacksmith. No wonder the price was 10 times higher. Just based on these 3 different experiences, the price was worth it. If a 3-star blacksmith was willing to show it to others, Han Fei felt that he could watch it all the way to a 5-star blacksmith. That way, he would be more inspired. In the end, this person refined a high-quality spiritual weapon. After this person was done, Han Fei said, "Thank you. I have 2 questions. How much spiritual energy did you consume? How many high-quality spiritual weapons can you refine in a day?" The person said impatiently, 80,000 points of spiritual energy, 7 times a day. Seeing this person sit on his futon, Han Fei smiled and left. Han Fei thought that it would cost about 50,000 points of spiritual energy to refine a high-quality spiritual weapon with the demon purification pot. And this person consumed 80,000 points of spiritual energy to refine a high-quality spiritual weapon. So, theoretically speaking, a 3-star blacksmith should be able to significantly reduce this number. After leaving the refining room, Han Fei was even more confident. He couldn't help but say to the shopping guide, "Let's go." Next. The shopping guide said, "The 3-star blacksmith hasn't started yet. It may take more than an hour." Han Fei paused and suddenly asked, "Are there few blacksmiths in the refining hall?" The shopping guide shook her head and said, "Actually, there are quite a few. At present, the number of certified blacksmiths has exceeded 100,000. Among them, 40,000 are 1-star blacksmiths, 40,000 are 2-star blacksmiths, more than 18,000 are 3-star blacksmiths, and more than 1,900 are 4-star blacksmiths." Wait, Han Fei was stunned. "So, according to you, there are only about 100 5-star blacksmiths?" The shopping guide said, "To be exact, there are 82 blacksmiths. Every 5-star blacksmith has their own exclusive refining room. Even if they don't come, they won't allow others to enter their refining rooms." Han Fei asked in surprise, "The treatment is so high. 82 people. 1082 smithing workshops. Could it be that for every 5-star blacksmith, there will be an additional smithing workshop?" The shopping guide nodded and said, "Of course. 5-star blacksmiths are extremely rare. To become a 5-star blacksmith, it's not as simple as refining ultra-quality spiritual weapons and sealing souls. Almost all 5-star blacksmiths are studying the techniques to refine divine weapons with ultra-quality materials. Among them, there are many who have already refined a half-step divine weapon." "Divine weapons?" Han Fei immediately exclaimed, causing many passers-by to look at him strangely. Han Fei swallowed and asked, "What is a half-divine weapon?" The shopping guide shrugged. "I don't know. I've never seen one." There are few people on the Scattered Stars Island who can use weapons of that level. However, I'm told that they are much more powerful than ultra-quality spiritual weapons. Han Fei didn't think it was difficult to refine divine weapons. He felt that as long as the materials were of a high enough level, the demon purification pot would be able to refine divine weapons. The question now was, how long would it take for him to improve his level as a blacksmith? How many stars should he upgrade to? For now, 3-star blacksmiths should be the pillars of the refining hall. 4-star and 5-star blacksmiths probably wouldn't be willing to refine weapons for ordinary people. Seeing that it would take a long time for the 3-star blacksmith to start, Han Fei asked, does the refining hall have to be used by blacksmiths? Or can it only be used by apprentice blacksmiths? The shopping guide said, of course not. The refining hall is open to the public. Otherwise, there wouldn't be 100,000 blacksmiths. You can pay different prices according to the size of the room. Every artifact forging room is equipped with a soundproof array. Han Fei thought of something. How much does a small room for apprentice blacksmiths cost per day? The shopping guide said with a smile, it's cheap. It only costs 500 points of credit or high-quality pearls per day. If you don't want to pay, you can be an apprentice. Although some apprentices rented their own rooms, they would only rent them when they needed it. Generally speaking, they learn from 1-star or 2-star blacksmiths. Han Fei immediately said, I want to rent one for a day. The shopping guide grinned and thought to herself, I made a lot of money today. I can get a commission, which is more than what I can earn by scavenging from the sea. After the shopping guide communicated for a while, someone soon delivered a room token. The shopping guide said, refining room number 198. Someone will come to inform you in a day. If you want to renew the lease, just pay the money. If you want to leave early, just return the token to the window. However, the room is not refundable until you use it for a day. Han Fei didn't care. Money. I have plenty of it. Inside the refining hall, there were also quite a few shops where weapons refiners put up for sale. According to the shopping guide, the price was about the same as that of the logistics division. However, there were often blacksmiths in the refining hall who sold the weapons they refined at a low price just to improve their skills. Therefore, there were many people who came to the refining hall. After walking around, Han Fei didn't find anything special. The shopping guide suddenly received a message that the 3-star blacksmith was ready to start refining, so she led Han Fei there. The third update. The latest update is about the same as yesterday. A little later tonight, from 7:30 to 8 o'clock. I'm going to cook. Also, I'm trying to enrich this worldview and the social structure of the Scattered Stars Island, hoping to make people feel more immersed in it. I'm going to pretend to be, end of this chapter. Chapter 620. The refining room of a 3-star refiner was somewhat similar to that of a traditional refining room. The room that Han Fei came to was about 100 square meters. All kinds of weapons were hung on the walls on both sides, most of which were ultra-quality spiritual weapons. There was not a single high-quality spiritual weapon. They were probably too embarrassed to hang them outside. There was a huge furnace in the room, but it was quite different from the furnace in a traditional blacksmith's workshop. This furnace was more like a hollowed alchemy furnace, about 5 meters high. The hollowed area in the middle was about 3 meters high. Below it was lava, and above it seemed to be a spiritual spring. The upper and lower parts were supported by thin pillars at the edge. On this refining furnace, there were 3 crystal tables, which seemed to be reserved for blacksmithing. The 3-star refiner that Han Fei saw was a middle-aged brawny man who looked at least 30 years old. His eyebrows were full of killing intent as if he had just returned from a battle. His 6-star rank already showed that his status was definitely not low. He was already at the same level as senior brother Dashui. Han Fei didn't expect that he would let him in for 5,000 high-quality pearls. Beside him, there were 2 4-star refiners. Han Fei didn't know how many stars these 2 were. However, both of them looked about 20 years old. Anyway, they couldn't be apprentice refiners. The middle-aged brawny man glanced at Han Fei indifferently. So you want to observe my refining method? Han Fei smiled. Yes, I'm going to learn the refining method first before deciding whether to learn refining. The middle-aged brawny man sneered. Then how do you feel after watching the refining method with spiritual energy? Han Fei was still smiling. It doesn't seem to be very difficult. Oh. The middle-aged brawny man looked at Han Fei. You're bragging. You're willing to spend 5,000 high-quality pearls just to observe refining once. You're quite courageous. Since you think the refining method with spiritual energy is not difficult, let's see the normal refining method. The middle-aged brawny man no longer looked at Han Fei, and the two assistants next to him looked at Han Fei with disdain. In their opinion, a person who couldn't even be called an apprentice came to watch a 3-star refiner refine a weapon. Except for remembering the process, he probably couldn't understand anything else. Han Fei saw a large pile of materials placed on 2 crystal tables. The middle-aged man said stiffly, "There is no material in this world that cannot be fused. The technique depends on the amount of spiritual energy, the strength of the spirit fusion, the strength of the hammer, and the method of fusion. Watch carefully." The middle-aged man threw a piece of purple ore into the middle of the crafting furnace. With the activation of his spiritual chi, the flames under the crafting furnace entered the pillar and suddenly filled the entire empty space in the middle. Intense flames shot out, and the 2 4-star assistant refiners took a step back, their expressions extremely focused. Han Fei stood 5 meters away and didn't move. Even though the flames had hit his face, Han Fei didn't move at all. This caused the middle-aged man to be slightly surprised, but he didn't take it seriously. A red light flashed in Han Fei's eyes, and he could clearly see that the purple ore was melting in the intense flames. However, every time the purple ore was about to completely melt, the flame would suddenly weaken a little, causing the ore to be on the verge of melting. This was extremely inconspicuous, but Han Fei noticed it. Since his eyelids were burned away in the abyssal chasm last time, Han Fei felt that his eyes seemed to be a little different. It wasn't until this moment that he could clearly feel the melting state of the ore, see the strength of the flames, and even see that the ore's core was slightly softening. After the flame lasted for 49 seconds, it suddenly disappeared. The half-melted purple ore was quickly hardening, and the middle-aged man had already prepared the sledgehammer. Clang, 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 the middle-aged man raised the sledgehammer and hammered 368 times in a row. Every time, Han Fei could see a large number of impurities being removed. Both the sledgehammer and the ore were covered with spiritual energy. After a round of hammering, the size of the purple ore was reduced by half. Immediately afterward, the middle-aged man repeated the previous operation and said to the 2 refiners, "The first round of polishing must be suppressed within 50 seconds. After 50 seconds, the material will harden, and then the material itself will be damaged." After 3 times in a row, less than 1/3 of the huge ore was left. In the last time, the middle-aged man directly grabbed the ore with a big hand of spiritual energy, squeezed the ore into a long strip, and immediately washed it with spiritual spring. Immediately afterward, the middle-aged man smelted 12 kinds of materials, each of which was refined into an embryo. The middle-aged man said, "These are all simple. The problem is the method of fusion." The middle-aged man glanced at Han Fei, only to find that Han Fei's eyes were dull. He immediately showed a touch of disappointment and thought to himself, "You don't understand, do you? How dare you brag to me?" The middle-aged man said, "This step also requires the spirit refining technique, but in addition to the spirit refining technique, you also need flames, temperature, and instant replenishment of spiritual energy. Don't be fooled by the fact that they're all supreme-grade spirit artifacts that achieve similar effects. However, the details are the key to whether or not you can improve further." For a moment, the 2 assistants dared not move their eyes at all. They all looked at the output of spiritual energy in the middle-aged man's hands and the degree of heat in the furnace. When an ultra-quality spiritual weapon was forged, Han Fei's eyes slightly lit up. The sharpness and symmetry seemed to have a touch of heaviness. Han Fei's eyes flashed, and he thought to himself, I've memorized it, but the problem is the control of strength, heat, time, and the last step of refining the spiritual energy and flames alternately. After that, the middle-aged man looked at Han Fei. Have you understood it? Han Fei slightly grinned. Yes. The two assistant refiners' teeth were all twisted. None of us had any enlightenment, but you did. The middle-aged man was also taken aback. Originally, he had a good first impression of Han Fei. But if you don't understand it, you don't understand it. Did you think I didn't see it? His intention to give Han Fei some guidance was immediately weakened. The middle-aged man waved his hand. You're done. It's time to go. Han Fei cupped his hands. Thank you. After he left the refiner, Han Fei looked at the shopping guide waiting outside and said, I want to buy the spirit fusing technique, the spirit polishing technique, and the spirit refining technique. Oh right, do you have the outline of a 3-star blacksmith, or any other stuff like that? The shopping guide was instantly delighted. Yes, 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 all of them. These 3 basic refining techniques are very cheap and almost all of them are free. Soon, the shopping guide took Han Fei to a room that specialized in selling refining classics. She pointed at the row of jade slips and said, the prices are clearly marked here. The basic refining techniques can be bought for only 1,000 high-quality pearls. Han Fei was stunned. So cheap. The shopping guide explained, the Scattered Stars Island encourages everyone to learn refining. Because spiritual weapons are too common to be damaged, a large number of spiritual weapons are needed every day. Besides, the weapons produced on the Scattered Stars Island are sold to the 1,000-star city and the 36 towns. The number of weapons that are needed is endless. Therefore, the supply of spiritual weapons in our refining hall cannot meet the demand. Even the weapons refined by the apprentice refiners have to be supplied as soon as possible. Han Fei was lost for words. Then how can this refining hall be enough? The shopping guide exclaimed in surprise. Huh? Don't you know? There are 5 refining halls on the Scattered Stars Island. Just like the cities on the Scattered Stars Island, there are 5 small cities in total. This is the West City. Han Fei raised his eyebrows. Really? Han Fei immediately blushed. Ah. I've only been here for a few days, so I don't know much. Wait a moment. Let me choose. Han Fei grabbed the 3 basic refining methods and browsed through them one by one. Suddenly, he saw a compendium of refining experience written by a 5-star refiner. Seeing the price, which was only 5,000, he immediately picked it up. Ha! When Han Fei was choosing, someone beside him couldn't help but laugh. He turned his head, only to see a little girl with 2 pigtails looking at him with a smile. She had 2 small dimples, which looked quite beautiful. Her face was fair and clean, and her 2 big eyes seemed to be innocent but were actually very cunning. She didn't seem to be as old as Han Fei. The little girl said, How dare you take something written by a 5-star refiner? You can't understand it at all. Han Fei nodded. There will be a day when I can understand it. The little girl randomly picked 2 books and said, This is Quick Guide for New Refiners written by Mu Jia, a 3-star genius refiner, and this is Wildfire Practical Record by Guan Qingyan, a 3-star genius refiner. They are the most suitable for you. You can put down the 5-star one. Han Fei couldn't help but ask, Genius refiner? How genius is she? The little girl tilted her head and said, Well, Mu Jia, only took half a year to promote from an apprentice refiner to a 3-star refiner. Guan Qingyan took a little less, 5 months. Anyway, they are all geniuses. Han Fei thought, does it take so long? Han Fei couldn't help but ask, Then who are you? The little girl opened her mouth and giggled. Mu Jia, Han Fei, 4,100 votes added should be a little more than 10 points. I thought about it. That's not right. I can't rush the progress. Even if I want to speed up, I need to maintain a steady pace. Only when I'm writing do I realize that I'll have to delay a few chapters. Ha ha ha. Don't worry, the book isn't written in one go. Haste makes waste. Yeah, end of this chapter. Chapter 621. Han Fei lowered his head and glanced at Mu Jia's waist tag. Oh my god, a 5-star waist tag. Is this girl a devil? Han Fei put down the 5-star refiner's book indifferently and accepted Mu Jia's quick guide for refiners for beginners. It was just 3,000 high-quality pearls, so Han Fei didn't care at all. Han Fei glanced at it and then looked at Mu Jia. Are you really a 3-star refiner? Mu Jia's little face turned serious, and with a swish, a token appeared in her hand and she threw it to Han Fei. On one side was refining, on the other side was Mu Jia, and below it was 3 stars. Han Fei shrugged and handed back the token. Is this the 3-star certificate? Mu Jia screamed, don't you believe it? Han Fei glanced at her. Junior Hanging Fisher, 5-star star. I guess you didn't get it by fighting, but by refining. Okay, I guess you are a genius. However, this genius, I'm going to get busy. Bye-bye. Mu Jia was dumbfounded. I'm a genius. How can you not suck up to me? Before Han Fei took 2 steps, the girl opened her arms and blocked in front of Han Fei. You are too rude. My realm is higher than yours, my star rank is higher than yours, and my refining talent is higher than yours. Why don't you suck up to me? If you suck up to me, I may accept you as an apprentice. Han Fei rolled his eyes and touched her forehead. You don't have a fever. So what if your realm is higher than mine? You may not be able to beat me. You have a higher star rank than me. Can you eat me? As for refining talent, what if I am better than you? Impossible. I rank 2nd in the promotion record of the refiners on the Scattered Stars Island. Han Fei chuckled. That's why you are 2nd. Who is 1st? The girl didn't know what 2nd meant. However, it didn't sound like a good thing. Han Fei seemed to be looking down on her, so she immediately shouted, only Guan Qingyan is 1 month faster than me. I will definitely surpass him when I become a 4-star refiner. Han Fei nodded and said, okay. Come on, work hard. But I have to go. Bye, genius. Pooh. Mu Jia was left alone. He was kind enough to guide him, but he didn't appreciate it. Other people weren't like that. Surely, he didn't know how many people wanted to become his apprentice. No, I have to show him a thing or two. Where is he? Mu Jia came back to her senses and found that Han Fei was gone. She stomped her feet in anger. Damn, bastard, don't let me see you again. Otherwise, I will definitely let you know what is called a genius in refining. Han Fei paid the attendant a service fee and went straight to his room 198. His first glance was not at the 2 books that Mu Jia had chosen for him, but at the 3 basic refining techniques. A moment later, information appeared in his mind. Spirit Fusing Technique. It has different effects in the hands of different people. Deduced Art Spirit Fusing Scripture Completion Rate, 0, 5 million. When Han Fei saw the words, Demon Level, High Quality, he knew that the refining hall was really short of people. Otherwise, how could a demon level, high-quality refining technique be sold for only 1,000 high-quality pearls? Han Fei was not bragging. If he sold it to Senior Uncle Faceless, he could definitely get 100 times the price. However, it was a good thing that it was cheap. The more the refining hall did this, the more refiners they were short of. As long as he became a 3-star refiner, he would definitely make a fortune when he started refining. Han Fei deduced the spirit fusing technique without any hesitation. Since he had the conditions, even if he couldn't stand at the other person's endpoint, he had to stand at the other person's midpoint. To put it nicely, he had to stand on the shoulders of the giants. A moment later, the 3 refining techniques were all deduced. Spirit fusing scripture. Heaven level melting technique, completion rate, 0.05 million. Han Fei didn't continue to deduce. He had long discovered a problem, which was that the so-called cultivation techniques and combat techniques needed to be deduced at the right time. Just like the million knife art, if he had deduced the million knives in one from the very beginning, he probably wouldn't have been able to use it at all. Just like that, Han Fei stayed in the refining room for about 6 hours before he finished reading the contents of the 3 books. In an instant, Han Fei took out a crab and a mess of stones, which were all ordinary objects that he threw in Forge the Universe. Okay. Let's try refining a magic weapon first. Let's start with the simple ones. Han Fei tore open a piece of crab shell with one hand. At the same time, 3 mystic stones, a fish skin, and a bamboo were rolled up in the air by spiritual energy. Han Fei's eyes glowed. With the eyes of true vision, he could clearly see the movement of spiritual energy. At this moment, all the spiritual energy had collapsed and penetrated straight into these materials. After 5 minutes, the smelting was completed. Han Fei wondered, it seems a bit fast. Did I make a mistake? Forget it, let's do the next step. As the spiritual energy vibrated and squeezed, layers of impurities were removed. Han Fei sensed that if he continued, these materials would be gone, so he immediately stopped. Wait. It's done in 5 minutes. Did I use too much strength? Forget it, let's not care about it for now. Let's combine it first. With a thought from Han Fei, spiritual energy began to gather and directly surrounded the materials. However, it was still 5 minutes. When the long knife in front of him was refined, Han Fei glanced at it. Pincer knife, low-quality magic weapon, introduction. The pincer of the red-haired big-mouth crab is the main body, with green crystals, dragon-headed fish bones, and devouring horns. Smelted. Remark: too many materials are removed, making the blade too brittle. The refined spiritual energy is uneven, making it easy to break. Han Fei blushed. It's just a low-quality knife. I'm standing on the shoulder of a giant, and you're making a low-grade toy. Throw it away, throw it away. After 5 minutes, another saber was forged. Pincer knife, low-quality magic weapon, introduction. The pincer of the red-haired big-mouth crab is the main body, with green crystals, dragon-headed fish bones, and devouring horns. Smelted. Remark: too little essence is extracted, making the blade not very tough. Too much spiritual energy is refined, making it difficult to conduct spiritual energy. No, throw it away. Let's do it again. Half an hour later. Han Fei had thrown 10 pincer knives under his feet, 7 low quality, 3 mid quality, and none high quality. At this moment, Han Fei was still refining. After the materials are melted, I have to immediately connect them to the spirit polishing scripture seamlessly. Not bad, not bad. Okay. When the spiritual energy penetrates smoothly, it means it's done. Blend. Using the spiritual energy as a sieve, he could sift through it to even out the spiritual energy. Good idea. Pincer knife, high-quality magic weapon, introduction. The pincer of the red-haired big-mouth crab is the main body, with green crystals, dragon-headed fish bones, and devouring horns. Smelted. Remark: the refining technique is standard, and the quality is average. I told you there was no problem. But why is the quality average? Isn't this a high-quality magic weapon? Is there still a problem? By the way, my eyes were a bit confused when I saw the spiritual energy just now. Should I clear the spiritual energy first? Forget it. There are still so many materials. Let's do it again. After a long time. More than 90 knives had been thrown under Han Fei's feet. Han Fei looked at the knife in front of him with a weird expression and rubbed his eyes. For some reason, he always felt that his eyes were sore after refining for too long. He seemed to be able to see spiritual energy flowing smoothly in the magic weapon. Was it because his eyes were tired after refining so much? After a while, he rubbed his eyes again. Pincer knife, ultra-quality magic weapon. Introduction. The pincer of the red-haired big-mouth crab is the main body, with green crystals, dragon-headed fish bones, and devouring horns. Smelted. Remark. The refining technique is standard, the materials are just right, and the spiritual energy is smooth. Huh. What's the level of refining ultra-quality magic weapons? Have I passed the apprenticeship period? Is it time for me to refine spiritual weapons? Just when Han Fei was about to continue trying, a voice came in from outside. Refining room number 198, your time is up. Do you want to renew the lease? Han Fei was stunned. I'm done. I've just started, okay. Wait, I have to meet Xiao Bai and the others. Forget it, I'll refine at home next time. Looking at the magic weapons on the ground, Han Fei waved his hand and collected them all, thinking to himself, when I return to the Blue Sea Town, I'll donate them to the Fish Dragon Central Elementary School. The error-free chapter of Fishing God will continue to be updated on Green Bean. There are no advertisements on this website. Please collect and recommend Green Bean. If you like Fishing God, please collect. Fishing God Green Bean updates the fastest. Chapter 622. After leaving the refining hall, Han Fei felt that he had obtained a new skill, pretty good mood. Immediately, he took out his waist tag. Hey, hey, hey. Is Xiao Bai there? Hey. Kuang Kuang. Xia Xiaochan, where are you? Yu. Where are you? However, soon after Han Fei called, Luo Xiaobai replied first, wait for me, half an hour. Lu Renquang asked, I'll be there soon. Where are you? I'm at the gate of the refining hall. Xia Xiaochan still didn't respond, but Zhang Xuanyu immediately replied, wait for me. I'll be there soon. After a while, the three of them met. When Zhang Xuanyu saw Han Fei, he immediately put his arm around Han Fei's shoulder. Fei. Let me tell you, I found the Scattered Stars Island really an interesting place. The club is really a good place. Shall I take you there tonight? Han Fei was lost for words. Wait, when did you go there? Zhang Xuanyu replied, I went there last night. I also went to Kuang, but he said that he was busy. You, Xiao Bai, and Xia Xiaochan were all not there, so I had to go there by myself. Han Fei was surprised. Huh. I'm here. I've been in the refining hall, but I didn't receive your message. Zhang Xuanyu was lost for words. That's not right. I called you, and I called you 3 times. Han Fei looked back at the refining hall. Was the signal blocked inside? This waist tag didn't seem to be very powerful. The signal range was so short, only 100 kilometers. This thing could easily run out of the signal range. After a while, Luo Xiaobai came late. After seeing Han Fei and the others, she casually greeted them and then said, Xiaochan is quite far from here. It will probably take an hour to get here. Han Fei was puzzled. Have you seen her? Luo Xiaobai nodded. When I was on the south coast, I heard that there was a Dark Hunter Legion there, so I called her once and found that she was really there. Han Fei shrugged. Then let's wait a little longer. When Xia Xiaochan left, Zhang Xuanyu asked, have you gone to the sea? Lu Renquang shook his head. No, I've only been to the Hell Beach once. I fought on the beach for half a day and then came back. Luo Xiaobai said, my time was even shorter than Lu Renquang's. I only went to the Silent Swamp to help him when I was around the island. It took me no more than half an hour. Zhang Xuanyu grinned and said, then I went quite a lot. I've already fought 5 or 6 times, but they were all on different coasts. I found that there were a lot of beaches on the Scattered Stars Island. There were sandy beaches, mudflats, stone beaches, reefs, and cliffs. Also, let me tell you one thing. There were inferior man fish on the Scattered Stars Island. I've fought them twice, and they're quite powerful. Han Fei was surprised. You saw the inferior manfish? Zhang Xuanyu nodded. Not just that. I saw a lot of inferior manfish. They are one of the main enemies of the Scattered Stars Island. They sat by a flower pond for a while, and Han Fei heard Xia Xiaochan's voice. Han Fei, are you there? I'm here. Come quickly to the entrance of the refining hall. A moment later, Xia Xiaochan hopped over. Seeing Luo Xiaobai and the others, she exclaimed in surprise, Wow! You're all here. Han Fei glanced at Xia Xiaochan. What's wrong with the black clothes you're wearing? They don't look good. Xia Xiaochan glared at Han Fei. This is the uniform of the Dark Hunter Legion. In the guild, we usually wear this. Didn't I forget to change? Han Fei grinned. Come on, let me carry you. Let's see if you're heavy. Clink. Xia Xiaochan stabbed her knife at him. Do you think I'm heavy? Han Fei said solemnly, absolutely not. Cough, cough. Zhang Xuanyu said, can you pay attention to your image? Luo Xiaobai was looking at the big sign of the refining hall. Seeing that the two of them stopped, she turned her head. Let's find a quiet place and summarize our information first. Zhang Xuanyu nodded. I know. Let's go to a club. There are exclusive private rooms there, and they're soundproof. Han Fei glanced at Zhang Xuanyu and asked, how do you know about soundproof? What did you do in there? Zhang Xuanyu was stunned. I didn't do anything. The reason why a club was called a club was to celebrate the survival of a disaster and to revel in life. The purpose of a club was that they didn't know when they would enter death, but they could live the best life while they were still alive. When everyone entered the carnival shop, a turbid atmosphere hit them in the face. It was like a bar in the middle world. Small tables were filled with people. Some people were drinking, some were bragging, and some were joking. However, the most eye-catching thing was the rather open style of clothes on many girls, including tights and loose gauze robes, which made Zhang Xuanyu's eyes glitter. What also surprised everyone was fish dragon cards. Zhang Xuanyu said, I've already asked about the origin of the fish dragon cards. I don't know who spread them, but they've only become popular on the Scattered Stars Island in the past 2 years. Han Fei was speechless. Who is so stupid? You plagiarized my idea and didn't even bother to tell me. Zhang Xuanyu said, let's not talk about the fish dragon cards for now. They can be bought everywhere on the Scattered Stars Island. Zhang Xuanyu waved his hand gently and said to a 2-star waiter, give us a private room. It must be quiet. Seeing the 2-star waiter, Han Fei couldn't help but frown, but he didn't say anything. Soon, they entered an exclusive private room. This private room seemed to be wrapped in a thick fish skin, and there was a soundproof array on the ground. Master Hexagon, who had been hiding on Xia Xiaochan's shoulder, suddenly said, this soundproof array is not good. It's incomplete and will leak sound. Everyone's expression changed slightly, and Han Fei said, then why don't you set one up? Xia Xiaochan pushed the hexagon starfish off her shoulder and pressed it on Han Fei's shoulder. Here you go. You ask me for food every day. I'm so annoyed. The hexagon starfish waved his tentacles and a new soundproof array was set on the soundproof array of the room itself. Luo Xiaobai said, set up another concealment array. This place seems to be a mixed bag. We'd better be careful. After a moment, the 5 of them sat in a circle. Luo Xiaobai said, let's summarize the information we know. Xia Xiaochan said, I go out to fight every day and have hunted more than 20 inferior manfish alone. As far as I know, in the entire Scattered Stars Island, note, the entire sea area within 1,000 kilometers, inferior manfish often appear. There are a lot of them, and they are not weak. Han Fei quickly asked, you've just arrived, and you've already gone to sea? Xia Xiaochan said, we are a special dark hunter squad, specializing in assassinations. Zhang Xuanyu said, I've also met inferior manfish several times. However, as far as I know, these inferior manfish are not thousands of kilometers away from the coastline. Sometimes they can even run to the beach, and sometimes they can hide under the cliff. Besides, I heard that some inferior manfish also have the ability to hide themselves and sneak attack human beings. Xia Xiaochan exclaimed, then aren't they the same as hunters? Zhang Xuanyu said, but I haven't seen this kind of inferior manfish yet. Maybe. Han Fei said, I haven't seen it either. However, I've experienced a defensive battle in the past few days. The tide of tide-calling crabs attacked the skeleton shore, but they failed to attack. The reinforcements came in time. Lu Renquang said, I've been sorting out the deployment of materials, the rules for the use of points, and the dispatch of combat readiness these days. I haven't seen anything like inferior manfish. However, let me tell you, you must get more stars as soon as possible. You can get a discount if you exchange points for items. Everybody was immediately refreshed. Han Fei asked, discount? How much? Zhang Xuanyu was surprised. Really? Lu Renquang said, of course, but the discount starts from the 5-star rank. You can get a 5% discount. If you have a 6-star rank, you can get a 10% discount. If you perform well on the Scattered Stars Island, you can get some titles and discounts. Also, you can exchange points for spiritual spring, spiritual fruits, combat skills, techniques, weapons, spirit awakening fluid, soul crystals. Lu Renquang mentioned a lot of things, including spirit awakening fluid, soul crystals, and life stones. First of all, the spirit awakening fluid was more expensive than the one sold by Uncle Faceless, at 5,000 points per caddy. This meant that he needed 50 million points to buy 10,000 caddies. Even if he exchanged it for mid-quality pearls at a 100 exchange rate, it would still cost 5 billion. But in fact, according to Old Bai's exchange rate, it might be worth 5 to 7 billion mid-quality pearls. In other words, after robbing a dragon boat, theoretically, he could only buy 10,000 caddies of spirit awakening fluid, which showed the importance of spirit awakening fluid. As for soul crystals, they were not cheap either. A level 1 soul crystal cost 3,000 points. As for level 2 soul crystals, the price was 10 times higher. Especially the life stone, it attracted everyone's attention. Lu Renquang said, I noticed it because the price was too high. A life stone is as high as 100,000 points. It is said that it can increase one's lifespan. Dangling fissures can increase their lifespan by 10 years, and even hanging fissures and hidden fissures can increase their lifespan by 1 year. About a moment later, everybody finished talking, and Luo Xiaobai said, okay, I'll sort out what you've said and fill in the gaps. Listen carefully. The error-free chapter of Fishing God will continue to be updated on Green Bean. There are no advertisements on this website. Please collect and recommend Green Bean. If you like Fishing God, please collect. Fishing God Green Bean updates the fastest. Chapter 623. Among them, Luo Xiaobai was in the Tactical Command Center, so she knew the most information. In the past few days, Luo Xiaobai had learned a lot of basic knowledge about the Scattered Stars Island and the overall strength layout of the Scattered Stars Island. Luo Xiaobai said, first of all, let's start from the Scattered Stars Island itself. As far as I know, the Scattered Stars Island came first, and then the 1,000-star city and the 36 towns. Huh. It has such a long history. Even longer than the 1,000-star city. Luo Xiaobai pretended to be angry. Don't interrupt me. Let me finish first. Luo Xiaobai continued, there are not many documents about the relationship between the Scattered Stars Island and the 1,000-star city. However, it is certain that the Scattered Stars Island has existed since the beginning. This means that the Scattered Stars Island is not unique, and it is very likely that there are islands in the sea similar to the Scattered Stars Island in places we don't know. The geographical situation of the Scattered Stars Island can be roughly divided into 4 battle lines: north, south, south, and west. But if we subdivide it, in fact, there are a total of 8 battle lines, which are defended by 8 guard legions. Under each battle line, there are actually advanced scouts, pioneers, Dark Hunter Legion, and the most important Guard Legion. Originally, there were actually many dangers inside the Scattered Stars Island. However, it seems that there are fewer dangers now, but some places are still uninhabited. For example, the Transverse Mountain, the Twisted Jungle. I don't know much about them. Luo Xiaobai spoke with fervor like a military advisor. During the war, everyone stays at their posts. If it's not during the war, there are actually many things that can be done. For example, the Pioneer Legion and the Dark Hunter Legion, these two organizations don't even need to participate in the war. The mission of the Pioneer Legion is to explore the waters around the Scattered Stars Island, mainly to find explorable secret realms. The entry requirements of the Dark Hunter Legion are extremely strict. Because they are always on the first battle line, which is highly dangerous, but also highly rewarding. In the Dark Hunter Legion, you may be promoted soon. Han Fei couldn't help but look at Xia Shaochan. Dangerous? Not bad. It's not a big problem. Then be careful. Let's find a way to break through to a hanging fissure first. Luo Xiaobai nodded. Yes, Shaochan should become a hanging fissure as soon as possible. Otherwise, it will only be more and more difficult for the Dark Hunter Legion. Luo Xiaobai continued, the purpose of all these battles is actually for one thing, spirit awakening fluid. Han Fei frowned. Is spirit awakening fluid so important? Luo Xiaobai said, the spirit awakening fluid is more important than we thought. As far as I know, spirit awakening fluid can accelerate the growth of spiritual beasts and contractual spiritual beasts. At the same time, it can also improve a cultivator's cultivation aptitude. The aptitude I'm talking about is the spirit vein. Hiss. Zhang Xuanyu exclaimed, no way. It can increase my spirit meridians? Luo Xiaobai nodded. According to the literature, normal people's spiritual heritage is actually incomplete. With the help of spirit awakening fluid, one's spiritual heritage could reach the best state. Of course, it was impossible for it to continue growing without a limit. It seems like I can only excavate the full potential of my spirit meridians before I can no longer improve them. Lu Renquang nodded. That's unbelievable. Master Hexagon Starfish asked, can I have something to drink? It seems to help Starfish too. Han Fei said angrily, go away. We don't even have anything to drink. Do you still want to drink? Luo Xiaobai smiled. Senior Hexagon Starfish is really good at drinking. It seems that the spirit awakening fluid is more effective for marine creatures than for human beings. The Hexagon Starfish's 6 big eyes immediately rolled. Look, Starfish can drink. Han Fei said angrily, it's so expensive. You can't even buy a few caddies of it even if you sell your treasure house. Wait a minute. Luo Xiaobai said, because the spirit awakening fluid is very useful for both human beings and marine creatures. Therefore, there was the Battle of the Scattered Stars Island. Humans and sea demons, that is, the inferior manfish, red demons, and half-mermaids, were competing for the spirit awakening fluid. Han Fei asked, half-mermaids? Luo Xiaobai nodded. On the Scattered Stars Island, the real enemy is not the inferior manfish and ordinary marine creatures, but the half-mermaids, who have almost the same talent as us humans. Zhang Xuanyu suddenly asked, isn't it beautiful? Bam! Han Fei kicked him hard. No one knew what he was thinking all day long. Xia Shaochan asked, where did the spirit awakening fluid come from? Luo Xiaobai explained, there are 2 places. One place is the Scattered Stars Island itself, which produces it in a cave on the island. The other place is in the ocean. It is said that in the sea around the Scattered Stars Island, protruding peaks often emerge from the ground. We call them undersea chimneys. Every time an undersea chimney appears, it means the beginning of a war between humans and sea demons. Until now, there have been victories and defeats. Han Fei asked, how does an undersea chimney appear? Luo Xiaobai shook her head. I don't know, and no one knows. Even the sea demons themselves probably don't know. Otherwise, they would have occupied all the undersea chimneys before humans did. Han Fei frowned. Does it mean that once an undersea chimney appears, there will be a war between the two armies? Luo Xiaobai nodded. It's not that exaggerated, but I'm afraid it's not simple. Once an undersea chimney appears, human beings will be the weakest party. Usually, only a few experts would participate. Every wave they could snatch was a wave. Otherwise, a huge number of marine creatures and sea demons will directly drown the undersea chimneys. This is also the reason why the creatures around the Scattered Stars Island are so powerful, because many of them have benefited from the Spirit Awakening fluid. At this point, everyone finally understood. It turned out that the Scattered Stars Island and all the buildings and professions on the island existed because of the Spirit Awakening fluid. At this moment, Han Fei couldn't help but realize that they still underestimated the use of the Spirit Awakening fluid. However, it seemed useless to talk about this now, because they had very few points now. They did have high-quality pearls, but they wouldn't buy the Spirit Awakening fluid crazily as soon as they arrived on the Scattered Stars Island. They had to be thoroughly familiar with the Scattered Stars Island first. Then, Luo Xiaobai taught them a lot of knowledge. For example, the serious shortage of refiners and alchemists, the significant increase in difficulty of fishing, and the dangerous places around the Scattered Stars Island. Anyway, this exchange lasted from the morning to the afternoon. After everyone left the private room, Zhang Xuanyu said, Fei Fei, let me tell you, there seems to be a lot of kinds of wine here. Some don't even look like wine. Come and have a try. There are all kinds of smells here. It's too turbid. Those women's clothes are disgusting. Han Fei glanced around. The atmosphere in the afternoon was much livelier than in the morning. There were indeed many young and beautiful girls here. Besides, on their waist tags, there were 2-star, 3-star, and 4-star ones. Han Fei even saw a woman with a 5-star waist tag. How could Han Fei not know? They were obviously here to have fun. Maybe in their world, they didn't care about life and death, and the affairs between men and women seemed to be normal. Cough, cough. Han Fei criticized seriously, Zhang Xuanyu, I have to criticize you seriously. What kind of scandal is it to spend all day in love? Zhang Xuanyu snorted. None of us have experienced the Battle of the Scattered Stars Island. If you had experienced it, do you think you would still be able to say that? Han Fei patted his chest. I can. I am a gentleman. Han Fei found a small table, sat down, and said to the waiter, serve all the special wines. Also, get some snacks. I don't want them if they're not delicious. Everyone sat down, and Zhang Xuanyu said with a smile, on this Scattered Stars Island, we have to do as the Romans do. We can only meet once every 5 days. We can't chat too formally. We have to have some fun. Luo Xiaobai said, I don't like this place very much. Xia Shaochan added, me neither. Lu Rinquang asked, when will the food be served? After a while, a dozen kinds of colorful wines were served. Han Fei tasted them one by one and said disdainfully, none of them taste good. Suddenly, Luo Xiaobai said, by the way, I forgot one thing. It seems that the people from the 1,000-star city are coming. Everyone was stunned. The 1,000-star city. Luo Xiaobai said, some time ago, when I arranged the defense, a lot of young people from the 1,000-star city appeared. Calculating the time, it should be within the next few days. Han Fei grinned. So, we are in trouble again. Luo Xiaobai shook her head. Not necessarily. Like us, they would be placed in different places. However, your previous opponents will probably all come, so you have to be careful. Han Fei didn't care about this. After the battle in the level 3 fishery, he was no longer afraid of the children of the big clans. The requirements of the Scattered Stars Island were so strict, so he was not afraid. Han Fei was just wondering if Tang Ge would come. He didn't know how Tang Ge was now after the separation in the level 3 fishery. Just as everyone was talking nonsense, someone at the next table glanced over from time to time, pointed at them, and laughed from time to time. Han Fei and the others had glanced over, only to see a man who looked like a gigolo look back and say to Han Fei, "What are you looking at?" With that, the man said to Xia Shaochan and Luo Xiaobai, "Two girls, come to our table. I'll take you to drink hard liquor." Hearing this, Xia Shaochan was furious and was about to attack. Han Fei stopped her. "Don't be impulsive, don't be impulsive. Let me do it." Han Fei got up, walked to the table, and stood in front of the young man. The young man glanced at Han Fei's waist tag and curled his lips. 3-star, advanced dangling fisher. Did you get in through the back door? Trash like you, don't get close to me. Han Fei grinned. Come on, turn your head. The young man asked, What? Bam! Suddenly, a big brick was printed on the man's head. The brick broke the man's nose and sent his teeth flying. Han Fei sneered. I don't like you. If you like Fishing God, please collect. Fishing God Green Bean updates the fastest. Chapter 624. Han Fei didn't have a good temper. To be precise, among the 5 of them, even Luo Xiaobai didn't have a good temper. Only Luo Renquang had a relatively good temper. In front of Han Fei, these people were talking about Xia Shaochan and Luo Xiaobai. How could Han Fei tolerate this? Son of a bitch, you're courting death. Puff! Next to him, a burly armorist had just stood up when he felt a chill on his back. In the next second, a dagger stabbed him in the stomach 4 or 5 times in a row. He fell to the ground with a dumbfounded look. The other 2 people's faces changed drastically and they immediately took out their weapons. However, the 2 of them were still too slow. One person's legs were tied up by vines, and the other was pincered by Xia Shaochan and Han Fei. He was hit in the head with a brick and stabbed 3 times in the stomach. Han Fei stepped on the young man's face. Come on, try smiling again. In the club, there was silence at first, followed by cheers. Someone shouted, Get up, beat them. Someone laughed. Stand up if you're a man. Someone was speechless. Are 3-star little guys so arrogant now? Oh. The law enforcement team has nothing to do every day. Today, we can finally give them something to do. The 4 people who were knocked down by Han Fei were now full of spiritual energy, covering their wounds while shouting, Asshole, tell me your name and team. I'll beat you up. Bam! Zhang Xuanyu went up and kicked him. Who do you want to beat? The young man under Han Fei's feet had just come back to his senses when dozens of sword chi phantoms rushed at Han Fei. However, Han Fei ignored the sword chi at all, picked up the brick, and smashed it a dozen times. Han Fei grinned and said, Laugh again. Show me another smile. I'll beat the shit out of you. On the side, some people who were watching the show cheered. Then beat them. Han Fei was speechless. Do you really want to see that? Luo Xiaobai said lightly, Okay, that's enough. If you beat them too hard, the law enforcement team will come. Among the 4, the young man who was tied up by Luo Xiaobai covered his stomach and said, Fuck, are you afraid of the law enforcement team? I'm a member of the law enforcement team. You're not allowed to leave. Zhang Xuanyu suddenly said, Do you know who I am? The man grimaced in pain. I don't care who you are. You dare to beat up a member of my law enforcement group in public? I'll kill you. Bang! Zhang Xuanyu went up and struck the man with his rod, causing him to vomit blood. It's good that you don't know me. Bye-bye. Then Zhang Xuanyu looked at the others and said, What are you waiting for? Let's go. I heard that fighting will deduct points. Everyone, the onlookers, Han Fei took Xia Shaochan and the others and quickly slipped out of the 1912 club. For some reason, He felt like laughing. How long had it been since he had such a strange experience? Ha ha ha. The few of them laughed maniacally. Zhang Xuanyu grinned and said, "Great, there are all kinds of people here. They can't find us anyway. It's fine." Who knows who? Luo Xiaobai said, "Actually, it's possible. But as far as I know, there are a lot of fights in the carnival. It didn't seem to be a big problem. Even if they found out, they would just have to pay some money." Lu Rinquang asked, "So, what are we going to do now?" Luo Xiaobai nodded. "Let's go home. Next, except for meeting every 5 days, we should work hard to cultivate and strive to make a breakthrough as soon as possible. Hanging fishers are the mainstream on the Scattered Stars Island." Zhang Xuanyu curled his lips. "It's a pity that we finally have a day off." Xia Shaochan added, "Just now, we should have given each of them a drop of Poison King." Everyone's first gathering ended with this comical brawl. Luo Xiaobai and the others went back. Han Fei and Xia Shaochan found a place where there was no one and talked for a while. As for what happened in the carnival, no one took it seriously. In fact, Han Fei and the others were arrogant. And in just a few days, Han Fei and the others all felt the atmosphere on the Scattered Stars Island. Here, fighting was common. Just like the first day Han Fei arrived at the 8th Battalion, a group of people gathered together to fight. In the end, nothing happened at all. During the few days Han Fei was there were fights almost every day. If it weren't for Han Fei's shocking battle performance, someone would have come to trouble him. He had to admit that people who were in love, their IQ would also change, and so would their personalities. Xia Shaochan was such a fierce girl, but since she fell in love with Han Fei, she didn't even have a fit anymore. In the end, Han Fei and Xia Shaochan stayed together for a long time before they returned to their camp. Before leaving, he pressed the hexagon starfish on Xia Shaochan's shoulder. Xia Shaochan probably needed it more than he did. When they returned to the skeleton shore, it was already dark. However, when Han Fei came to his treehouse, he found that 4 more treehouses had been set up next to his treehouse and on the ground. At this moment, Yu Lingyun and the others were sitting on the ground and eating barbecue. Gu Daliang scratched his head. "Wait. Why is it not as delicious as the captain's?" Leng Hui nodded. "The ingredients are not right." Wu Xiaoxiao sighed. "Hey, the long-snout silver shark is so delicious. I really want to eat it again. Last time, I felt that my cultivation improved after eating it." Gu Daliang chuckled. "Me too. We're living on the Scattered Stars Island on a knife's edge anyway. Do you really have to treat yourself so badly? Captain, you're really good at living." Yu Lingyun curled her lips. "Then train more. Improve your strength and catch them on your own." As they were chatting, they saw Han Fei descend from the sky. Han Fei was stunned. "What? What are you doing? Why are you all here?" Wu Xiaoxiao immediately jumped to her feet. "Captain, come on. Let's have barbecue." Han Fei shook his head. "No, thanks. I've already had it." As he spoke, Han Fei threw a pile of ultra-quality spiritual weapons to the ground. "Yu Lingyun, your sword. Leng Hui, your dagger. Gu Daliang, your shield and big sword. Wu Xiaoxiao, your battle suit." "Ah!" Wu Xiaoxiao immediately screamed, "I have an ultra-quality battle suit now." Gu Daliang hurried to pick up his shield and sword with a big smile. Leng Hui simply rubbed his palm with the dagger. Blood flowed out and he immediately refined it. Yu Lingyun's eyelids shivered. She asked in shock, "It's done?" Han Fei said with a cunning smile, "You'll have to pay me back from tomorrow. It doesn't matter how much it is. I want to see the credit points in my account every day." Wu Xiaoxiao, who was jumping in excitement a moment ago, stiffened. She didn't say until a long time later, cough, "Okay, no problem, Captain." Han Fei thought for a moment and said, "Right, let's meet at the camp tomorrow morning. Yu Lingyun was confused. Isn't this the camp? We're all going to move here. Han Fei pointed at the camp far away and said, let's meet there. We're from the 8th Battalion anyway. What's wrong if we don't see our comrades every day? Then, while everybody looked at him in confusion, Han Fei dashed into his treehouse. Han Fei had more important things to do than chatting with Wu Xiaoxiao and the others. He had to become a 3-star refiner as soon as possible. By then, he would be able to distribute leaflets and pick up customers with his soul possession skills. Downstairs, Wu Xiaoxiao and the others looked at each other in bewilderment. Gu Daliang, on the other hand, touched his big sword and grinned. Good sword and good shield. Yu Lingyun asked, don't you feel that the captain is a bit weird? Wu Xiaoxiao nodded. I think so. He seems to like making money. Leng Hui added, he seems to be throwing away the ultra-quality spiritual weapons as if they were garbage. Everyone, inside the treehouse, Han Fei didn't intend to hide it. The fact that he was learning to refine would be exposed sooner or later. Why didn't he let other people know that he could refine sooner? After he was adept at refining, he would make the entire 8th Battalion owe him money. It was an uneventful night. The next morning, in the camp of the 8th Battalion, many of the senior investigators on break were having breakfast. Some were training, and some were sparring with each other. 5 squads of the same batch as Han Fei had set off, and the others were about to set off too. Yu Lingyun and the others, on the other hand, were standing straight and solemnly in a row. Many people were surprised to see them. If they were going to investigate, then so be it. What were they doing? Han Fei, however, stood before Yu Lingyun and the others. Okay, take out your weapons and prepare to go. Take out our weapons? Yu Lingyun and the others were all taken aback. What weapons should they take out now? Couldn't they be used at any time if they were kept in their bodies? Han Fei said solemnly, today, we're going to develop a habit called weapon nurturing. Don't keep your spiritual weapons in your body anymore. Hold them in your hands at all times, like me. Han Fei had a blood-drinking knife on his waist and the water-dividing seal in his hand. Yu Lingyun frowned. Isn't weapon nurturing just enough in your body? Han Fei shook his head. All your spiritual weapons have sealed souls. Do you think it's enough to nurture them in your body? You have to cultivate your feelings. Cut the crap and take out your weapons. Yu Lingyun and the others immediately took out their weapons. As soon as the ultra-quality spiritual weapons were taken out, everyone was shocked. Someone exclaimed, they are all ultra-quality spiritual weapons. Someone said in disbelief, did the 37th squad make a fortune? Just now, I seem to see a shadow on Gu Daliang's sword. It seems to be an ultra-quality spiritual weapon with sealed souls. Someone was shocked. The 37th squad is so poor. How come all of them are equipped with ultra-quality spiritual weapons? Someone sighed. No, we'll have to ask them when they come back. On the fishing boat, Wu Xiaoxiao and the others were talking telepathically. Wu Xiaoxiao said, I seriously suspect that the captain intentionally asked us to show our weapons. Just now, the other squads were all stunned. Yu Lingyun secretly heaved a sigh. For some reason, I always feel that something is wrong with the captain. Second update. Asking for votes, end of this chapter. Chapter 625. 1 month passed. Han Fei was refining. Yu Lingyun and the others were already used to it. They didn't know where Han Fei got so many materials, but he had been refining crazily for a month. At this moment, Yu Lingyun and the others were secretly chatting with each other. Wu Xiaoxiao asked, isn't the captain too rich? Refining requires not only materials but also a tremendous amount of spiritual energy. He has been refining for a whole month. Does he still have the money to do so? Gu Daliang nodded. I saw it. Since 7 or 8 days ago, all the weapons he refined are high-quality spiritual weapons. That's too fast. Yu Lingyun nodded. Maybe it's because other people aren't as rich as him. However, he's refined high-quality spiritual weapons from low-quality spiritual weapons to high-quality spiritual weapons in only 1 month. That's an appalling speed. Leng Hui nodded. Extremely fast. Han Fei had never kept the fact that he was learning refining a secret. Every time he was on vacation, people thought that he went to buy materials and learn refining. In fact, Han Fei bought a lot of shiny things and exchanged them for treasures with the hexagon starfish. At this moment, almost all the not-so-shiny things in the hexagon starfish's treasures that could be used for refining were bought by Han Fei. For that, Han Fei spent a lot of high-quality spiritual stones. After a tremendous amount of materials were piled up, 1 month later. At this moment, a handful of materials in Han Fei's hand were flashing and extremely unstable. It was the transition between high-quality spiritual weapons and ultra-quality spiritual weapons. Swish! A blade light pierced through the treehouse and flew into the sky, allowing Yu Lingyun and the others to appear under Han Fei's treehouse. Leng Hui's pupils constricted. How can an ultra-quality spiritual weapon be so fast? Yu Lingyun and the others were all lost for words. Is that it? In the distance, many people perceived the blade light and came to see. As early as a month ago, when Yu Lingyun and the others took out the ultra-quality spiritual weapons, everyone knew that the captain of the 37th Squad had reliable connections and could refine ultra-quality spiritual weapons. At that time, many people came to ask Han Fei to refine ultra-quality spiritual weapons with materials and so on. However, Han Fei refused all of them. At that time, Han Fei said that his seniors didn't have enough time to refine for so many people. However, Han Fei also said that he had made some achievements in refining. As long as he gave it some thought, he might be able to forge a supreme-grade spiritual weapon. Once he was able to forge a supreme-grade spiritual weapon, he would definitely sell it to his colleagues in the 8th Battalion at a discount. However, that was not the case. At this moment, the ultra-quality spiritual weapon was refined, and many people ran over as soon as possible. Someone asked, Yu Lingyun, has your captain been appointed? Yu Lingyun, that was an ultra-quality spiritual weapon just now. Am I mistaken? Xiao Xiao, we're good friends. Can you tell your captain about this? Daliang, are we brothers close? Can you help me ask your captain to forge a supreme-grade spirit weapon? Brother Leng, forget it. Yu Lingyun, I'm not bragging. I've always admired your personality. Can you ask your captain to refine a saber for me? Who? Han Fei let out a long breath, with a touch of surprise in his eyes. This surprise was not the surprise of refining a supreme-grade spiritual weapon. In his opinion, this was a matter of course. In just 1 month, he had consumed more than 80 million points of spiritual energy, all the spiritual spring he had, and all the low-quality spiritual stones were consumed by him. In Forge the Universe, not a single hair of the materials below ultra-quality was left. If he still couldn't refine an ultra-quality spiritual weapon, how bad would his aptitude be? What surprised Han Fei was that through refining, he found that his control of spiritual energy was getting better and better. If his control of spiritual energy was 100 points before, now it was probably 150 points. What did it mean to have a stronger control of spiritual energy? About 100 points of spiritual energy, he could exert the combat power of 150 points of spiritual energy. Although he was still dozens of points away from becoming a peak-level dangling fisher. In terms of strength, he was much stronger than before. No wonder, no wonder. No wonder those refiners' star ranks are so high. It turns out that refining has such benefits. Of course, the benefits were great, but during this period, Han Fei consumed a lot of spiritual energy. He probably consumed more than 80 million points of spiritual energy. From a month ago to now, including this ultra-quality spiritual weapon, he had refined a total of 1,509. Who knew how many people would be shocked if this number was made known to them? After all, a trainee refiner could only refine a dozen or so weapons a day. Han Fei, on the other hand, refined more than 50 weapons a day on average with his family background and strong spiritual power. The number was so great that it made one's jaw drop. Besides, Han Fei recently found that the spiritual barrier seemed to be loosening. Suddenly, he heard a lot of people talking under the tree house. Han Fei sensed and couldn't help but be surprised. Where did so many people come from? But then his face was full of smiles. Here it comes, it's time for me to make a fortune. Han Fei immediately jumped down from the treehouse. Sorry to disturb you. Just now, I accidentally made a breakthrough in the art of refining, and ultra-quality spiritual weapons are no longer a problem for me. I know you are eager. How can I not hope that everyone in the 8th Battalion has a divine weapon in their hands? Well, I promised you that I would refine weapons for you, and it still counts. Immediately, someone said, Captain Han, I have materials. I want to refine a long spear. Someone hurriedly pushed the man away. Captain Han, I can pay more spiritual energy. I just want a giant shield. Go away, I came here first. Fuck off. When I got here, there was no one. Many captains from other squads also came over to surround them. There was a refiner in the 8th Battalion who could refine ultra-quality spiritual weapons. This showed that he was already at the level of a 2-star refiner. However, a captain was puzzled. Han Fei, what's the success rate of refining ultra-quality spiritual weapons now? Han Fei said lightly, today I suddenly realized that the success rate of refining ultra-quality spiritual weapons is almost 50%. Wow! A captain's eyes lit up. 50%? Isn't that the level of a 3-star refiner? Yes. Captain Han, are you sure you can refine it? Han Fei said leisurely, although I think the success rate is probably 50%, that's under the condition that I can devote myself to it. Besides, refining ultra-quality spiritual weapons consumes a lot of energy. I can refine up to 5 a day at most. I have to spend the rest of the time on cultivation. Someone's eyes flickered. Captain Han, what's the price for you to refine an ultra-quality spiritual weapon? A 3-star refiner of the refining hall must provide 100 kilograms of spiritual energy and 3 sets of materials to refine a spiritual weapon. What about you, Captain Han? Han Fei raised his eyebrows. So greedy. That's too fucking profitable. I'm so excited. No, I can't show it. I have to calm down. Cough, cough. Han Fei frowned and scolded him solemnly, you're being too polite. We're colleagues. How can I charge you so much? How about this? I only need 2 sets of materials and 50 kilograms of spiritual energy. Hiss. Really? Captain Han, are you serious? Captain Han, you're so generous. We admire you. Wu Xiaoxiao screamed, Captain, are you crazy? If you fail, you'll have to put in the materials yourself. Gu Daliang also said, Captain, why don't we? Yu Lingyun interjected, Captain, isn't this too cheap? Han Fei secretly chuckled. Wu Xiaoxiao and the others were the most eye-catching. Cheap. Holy shit, this was simply a matter of making a profit with each round of refining. Cheap my ass. Han Fei glared at them and criticized them solemnly, how can I make money from my colleagues? It's a deal. The squads of the 8th Battalion will help each other. I'll set the price. Right, I have some extra materials with me. Some of my colleagues who don't have the materials and spiritual energy but want an ultra-quality spiritual weapon can also give me points. You don't have to pay me all at once. Just pay me back as much as you have. Hiss. That's a good deal. You can buy it on credit. Immediately, someone said solemnly, Captain Han, please forgive me for my criticism of you before. Today, I, Wang Liang, would like to apologize to Captain Han. Someone cupped his hands. Captain Han is our role model. If you need anything in the future, feel free to come to us. We won't refuse you. Someone was overjoyed. Captain Han, we can't let you suffer too much. If your success rate of refining ultra-quality spiritual weapons is about 50%, we might as well add some more spiritual energy. Immediately, someone squinted at him. Is there something wrong with your head? He's already asking for such a low price, and you still want to add more spiritual energy? Are you crazy? Is money not money? Suddenly, someone asked, Captain Han, when can you seal souls? Why don't you learn the spirit sealing art too? Han Fei was about to say that, but he was smiling. I've already learned the spirit sealing art, but it's rather difficult. Although I have some foundation, it will take me at least a month to learn it. I'll seal souls for you at a 30% discount. I'm sure you'll be satisfied. Han Fei thought that these poor guys couldn't afford to seal souls, so he asked them to buy weapons with their points first. When they accumulated enough points in the future, he could trick them into sealing souls and make a fortune. Hiss. Captain Han, 30% discount. Shoot, learn the spirit sealing art in a month? Am I too stupid? Isn't it said that refining is as difficult as climbing to the sky? Captain Han, you're awesome. Han Fei quickly interrupted them. Hey! Everyone, you're too polite. I, Han, am a man of my word. Every word I spit is a nail. I'll never change my words. Okay, that's settled. Now, who wants to refine? Me. Me. I came first. Get lost, Yu Lingyun and the others looked at each other in bewilderment. For some reason, they felt that something was wrong. In the distance, on a certain tree, Zhong Han, the captain of the 8th Battalion, was looking at them and murmuring, interesting. Third chapter. Asking for votes. If I want to add more chapters, I'll do it normally at around 7 or 10 o'clock. Anyway, I should only add 2 chapters today. Ha! It seems like I can take a break after tomorrow. Oh right, these 3 chapters are all 3,000 words. I don't know why, but the more I write, the more words I write. End of this chapter. Chapter 626. In one morning, Han Fei accepted 58 orders. Han Fei couldn't help but regret saying that he could only refine 7 ultra-quality spiritual weapons a day. Of course, Han Fei only felt slightly regretful. After all, it felt great to have points in his account every day. For example, in just 1 month, Yu Lingyun and the other 3 had already contributed 40,096 points to him. In fact, it was a good deal. With ultra-quality spiritual weapons, Yu Lingyun and the others were much stronger and could earn more points. A regular ultra-quality spiritual weapon only cost 10,000 points. A regular ultra-quality spiritual weapon with a sealed soul only cost 30,000 to 50,000 points. Based on Yu Lingyun's speed, after deducting the daily expenses, it would only take them 3 months to pay off the debt. Perhaps, ultra-quality materials were hard to get in the level 3 fishery. However, in the unknown place, it was no exaggeration to say that the difficulty was directly reduced by 50%. The reason why people were reluctant to use ultra-quality spiritual weapons was that they were too expensive and costly to refine. If they were bought directly, they would cost at least 10,000 points, which was equivalent to more than 1 million mid-quality pearls. Refining them required 3 sets of materials and a spiritual spring, which was not cheap at all, and they had to wait in line. Han Fei gave such a huge discount on the service fee, which could be deducted with points and put on credit. Who wouldn't be tempted? Just as Han Fei accepted the orders and was calculating how much he could make from them every day, he suddenly heard a roar. Everybody, gather. Immediately, everybody's face changed and they all ran to the camp. Han Fei and the others were no exception. Although they accepted orders, they couldn't slack off at all when the mission came. In the past month, Han Fei only encountered a relatively large-scale attack by the big sword water fleas. However, just like the tide-calling crabs, they were easily repelled. Apart from that, the daily patrols were basically uneventful. Han Fei couldn't help but be surprised. Maybe the unknown place wasn't so terrible. In the camp, all the 66 squads were gathered here. Everyone formed groups of 5 and lined up together. Standing in the open space at the front, Zhong Han looked at everyone gloomily. The red spirit is here. Now, the squads I call, take out your fishing boats and follow me. When they heard the words, red spirit, everyone was shocked. Many of them revealed expressions of deep wariness. Confused, Han Fei asked Yu Lingyun telepathically, what's the red ghost? Gloomily, Yu Lingyun released coldness all over her body. A tide of red ghosts. It's too complicated to explain. I'll tell you on the boat. Zhong Han roared, squads 1 to 10, 13, 17, 22. 37. 59, follow me immediately. Gu Daliang immediately took out a fishing boat, and everybody jumped on it. Within 2 seconds, all the fishing boats took off. In the sky, seeing that everybody was grim and fearless, Han Fei couldn't help but ask again, what's a tide of red ghosts? Yu Lingyun frowned and suddenly looked up at Han Fei. Han Fei sensed a strong killing intent. Yu Lingyun's eyes were cold. The red ghost tide is the outbreak of a lot of ghost algae, which sweep the coast with a lot of venoms. Inside the red ghost seaweed, all the creatures were poisonous, and all the creatures were poison-resistant. Once a tide of red ghosts occurs, it means that some sea demons have gone crazy again and are trying to attack the Scattered Stars Island. Wu Xiaoxiao's face was also cold as she mumbled, the last captain died in the tide of red ghosts. More than 20% of the participants were killed or wounded. I don't know if I can pay back the points I owe to the captain. Han Fei didn't mind the credit at all. His eyes slightly constricted. 20% of the casualties. Han Fei took a deep breath. This was not a fishing trial. Most of the people here were hanging fishers. What did it mean for a casualty rate of 20%? It meant that for every 10 hanging fishers who went out, 2 would die. Han Fei asked solemnly, how often does this tide of red ghosts break out? Yu Lingyun explained, logically, it can only break out twice a year at most. Under normal circumstances, it only happens once a year. However, there was only a gap of 4 months between the last time and this time. Leng Hui nodded. It means that the sea demons are up to something. Han Fei frowned. Was it because he had been living too comfortably recently? He had forgotten to collect anti-poison fruits. If this red specter tide was filled with poisonous creatures, would he be able to hold them off? Han Fei wasn't sure. The venomous tulip was only an ultra-quality anti-poison fruit in the level 3 fishery. But Han Fei hadn't eaten any of the poisonous fruits in the unknown place yet. Could he resist them? He really didn't know. Han Fei made up his mind not to go into the sea. He had to find anti-poison fruits after this battle. The fishing boat traveled all the way at an extremely fast speed. In the time it takes for half an incense stick to burn, they have already crossed several regions. Along the way, Han Fei saw fishing boats from other places taking off from time to time. They seemed to be rushing to help. The place where Han Fei and the others needed help. It was called the Path of Giants. Why was it called the Path of Giants? When Han Fei was in the sky, before he landed, he had already understood. About 50 kilometers from here, there was a row of horizontal pillars that were thicker and taller than the trees in the forest. These pillars stood in the sea and stretched for more than 100 kilometers, like a defensive city wall. Under each of the stone pillars, there was a mountain of large stones. The purpose of these stones was to prevent the sea demons from pulling down these stone pillars. At this moment, on each stone pillar stood 2 soul warriors and a spirit gatherer. These soul warriors, without exception, were all using bows. At this moment, they were crazily shooting spiritual energy arrows into the red tide with their battle bow skills. The spirit gatherer, on the other hand, had to ensure that the 2 soul warriors had enough spiritual energy in their bodies. But no matter how strong these soul warriors were, there was always a large red tide that jumped over the stone pillars. In the red tide, Han Fei saw a lot of bugs, red and green crabs, spiders, starfish, in the sky, on the overwhelming fishing boats, countless people were fishing. They hooked up those venomous creatures and killed them in midair. This was just a defense. And there were a total of 9 such defenses. In other words, the so-called Path of Giants had 9 layers. Han Fei couldn't help but be stunned. 9 layers of defense are still not enough. Yu Lingyun said, in the tide of red ghosts, there are always creatures that can pass through the layers of defense. So, the next step is a head-on battle. That's why we're here. We're going to fight the venomous creatures head-on. Han Fei took a deep breath. Are they crazy? Fight the venomous creatures head-on. No wonder so many people died. So, they were all poisoned to death. At this moment, the fishing boats landed. Zhong Han roared, "Cooperate, cooperate, cooperate. Teamwork is the key to fighting the venomous creatures. Manipulators, remember to control the rhythm, and spirit gatherers must supply me with spiritual energy. Armorists are the main force. Soul warriors and hunters, don't charge in like idiots." About 150 people had come, and half of the 8th Battalion had come. Judging from the fishing boats in the sky, the number of soldiers on the Path of Giants was increasing. Because the task assigned to them was not to rush to the front but to the main battlefield behind the 9 layers of obstacles. Therefore, Han Fei had no idea what the situation of the first battlefield at the periphery was like. However, the main battlefield had already begun. Han Fei easily perceived the many squads that were fighting on the coast 20 kilometers away. Yu Lingyun asked, "Captain, do you have antidotes?" Han Fei shook his head. "Where would I get the antidote? I've been too busy with refining these days." Yu Lingyun, however, immediately threw a small red bottle to Han Fei. "This is a regular antidote. Take it immediately if you're poisoned." At this moment, Zhong Han had led Han Fei and the others to the mudflats on the coast. Zhong Han instructed, "Just defend this side later. I'll go to the front to reinforce them." Han Fei's area was full of scorpions, and they all came here by digging the ground. Many big black scorpions with red spots didn't even come out of the ground but simply attacked the mudflats. Someone accidentally stepped on a hole in the mud, and half of his body fell into the hole. Then, they were hit by poisonous hooks. Han Fei clicked his tongue. It wasn't because those people had no perception, but because there were too many scorpions. They were even more numerous than the big sword water fleas on the skeleton shore. However, compared to the venomous scorpions, other places were even more shocking. Han Fei perceived that 15 kilometers away, a bunch of manipulators were facing insects that were as thick as arms. Han Fei immediately came back to himself and roared, "Wu Xiao Xiao, I'll leave the underground part to you. Yu Lingyun and Leng Hui will assist Wu Xiao Xiao. I only have one requirement. No scorpions must emerge from the ground." Wu Xiao Xiao immediately realized her importance. Her 3-leaf cold wind grass was characterized by freezing. It was the most reasonable thing for her to freeze the mud and guard the underground. Wu Xiao Xiao said solemnly, "Unless I die, no giant feathered scorpion will emerge from the ground." Han Fei instructed, "Daliang, will guard the ground." Gu Daliang said solemnly, "Okay." After a minute, Han Fei and the others rushed into the battlefield. Zhong Han, on the other hand, leaped up and rushed to the front line. Han Fei also saw the first scorpion. Its pincers were dark red, and there were short legs under its abdomen. The most eye-catching part was its tail. At the end of its tail, there were 2 rows of long needles, like feathers on an arrow. The one in the middle was red, which was obviously very poisonous. Name a giant feathered scorpion. Introduction. This is a multi-legged sea scorpion with 2 pincers, 8 swift legs, and feather hooks on its tail. It's extremely fast and has 23 stingers, each of which is poisonous. The red stinger is the most poisonous. Anyone below peak level dangling fishers will die in 10 seconds if they don't have an antidote. Level 43 Quality Regular Spiritual Energy greater than 1998 points. Effect Inedible collectible feather hooks. The error-free chapter of Fishing God will be updated on Green Bean. There are no advertisements on this website. Please collect and recommend green bean. If you like fishing god, please collect. Fishing god green bean updates the fastest. Chapter 627. After he saw the scorpion, Han Fei suddenly roared, "Stop!" Yu Lingyun asked, "What's wrong?" Han Fei said, "Don't move. I'll set up a defense array for you." Han Fei pointed his hands, and a circle of complicated array patterns was taking shape below Wu Xiaoxiao and Gu Daoliang's feet. In less than 2 breaths of time, the two of them had formed a defensive array formation with 6 veined armor plates. Wu Xiaoxiao exclaimed, "Captain, you're good at arrays." Yu Lingyun and the others were also dumbfounded. Talent mattered most to a spirit gatherer. It wasn't bad enough to be a spirit gatherer, and learning healing arts was already a headache. Arrays, on the other hand, were only for spirit gatherers. Most of the spirit gatherers who were good at arrays were in their 20s or even 30s. After all, it took time to learn arrays. Han Fei, for example, could only be described as a genius if he could set up a defense array with a point of his finger. Han Fei said, "Don't be surprised. It's just a beginner defense array. However, it shouldn't be a problem for it to deal with the scorpion's attacks." After another moment, Yu Lingyun and Leng Hui also set up the 6 spirit armor. Han Fei, on the other hand, simply stepped on the ground and set up the 6 spirit armor in no time. The other squads all grimaced at this scene. Someone looked at the spirit gatherer in his team and couldn't help but say, "Look at the captain of the 37th squad. He's even capable of defense arrays." The spirit gatherer blushed. "He's an advanced dangling fisher, and he's even a captain. Compared to such a genius, so what if I don't know arrays? Which spirit gatherer in the other squads knows arrays?" After an array was set up, Han Fei roared and charged at the army of scorpions. They were level 43 creatures. If it were before, Han Fei wouldn't have been able to defeat them no matter how hard he tried. Although they were only regular quality, they were still level 43 crustacean creatures. But at this moment, the 10 blue sea wandering dragon daggers around Han Fei stabbed crazily and pierced a dozen scorpions the moment he charged into the battlefield. It was exactly when they charged into the scorpions that the venomous needles were sprayed out as if they were free. Fortunately, those needles were not the most poisonous. Also, Yu Lingyun and the others dodged well, and only 1 needle was stabbed into their 6 spirits armor every few seconds. Adhering to the principle of keeping a low profile, Han Fei didn't expose the 99 blue sea wandering dragon daggers although he was on a killing spree. However, with every swing of his saber, a large scorpion would be killed. The battle lasted no more than 50 breaths. Half of the 150 members of the 8th Battalion began to take drugs. Their faces were already abnormally red. No matter how hard the manipulator tried to defend, there was no way he could block the sky full of poison needles. Being poisoned was almost inevitable. Fortunately, these people had more or less eaten anti-poison fruits, so they had some resistance to the scorpion's venom. But in terms of battle prowess, it was obvious that it had declined. Therefore, the charge of the 4 of them was extremely fierce. There was not a single living creature within 50 meters of the 5 guys who were emitting a faint golden glow. In just a short while, hundreds of scorpions had died under their attacks. Fortunately, a lot of friendly forces that he did not know rushed in. Otherwise, the 8th Battalion alone couldn't stop the giant feathered horseshoe crabs that emerged from the ground. After another moment, the 6 spirits armor of Yu Lingyun and the others was all broken. The spiritual energy of these people was also rapidly decreasing. Yu Lingyun said, "Take your medicine." Gu Daliang said, "Stay behind me. I'll block them." Wu Xiaoxiao's face was a little pale. Her workload was definitely not small. She had to sense the underground and pay attention to the surface all the time, which consumed her spiritual energy very quickly. Wu Xiaoxiao shouted, "Captain, spiritual energy." Han Fei didn't charge again. When he saw more and more large scorpions emerging from the ground, he knew that he was in trouble. Unless he summoned all the blue sea wandering dragon daggers and rushed into the scorpions alone. But even so, in the sea that spanned dozens of kilometers, even if he could charge back and forth, he couldn't change much without the support of peak-level hanging fissures. Ah! Suddenly, Han Fei looked at the source of the sound, only to see that someone had been hit by the red feather hook. In less than 2 breaths of time, his entire body seemed to have turned into a cooked shrimp. Thick dark red blood burst out from his body. Not good. Armorists, hold on. A manipulator was pierced by a giant scorpion, and all his vines withered. After the manipulator died, the armorists were the only ones who could defend the team. How could they resist it? After only a moment, the 4 of them, including the armorist, were full of black thorns. Although they weren't dead yet, they had all lost their combat ability. On the other hand, losing the ability to fight on the battlefield was no different from dying in battle. Han Fei took a deep breath and gave Wu Xiao and the others another 6 spirits armor. Then he shouted, "Everybody, retreat. I'll release the poison in the front." On the 8th Battalion's side, 2 squads had been wiped out. There were also quite a few people who had perished here and there. Han Fei was certain that it wouldn't be a good thing if the battle went on like this. After all, only a limited number of people could come to help. The creatures in the ocean, on the other hand, had much higher reproductive abilities than human beings. For example, a scorpion could lay 40 to 50 eggs in a nest. That was no big deal. From the moment a person was born, to the moment they grew up, to the moment they succeeded in their cultivation, they had to go through layers and layers of elimination. It could be said that every one of them was an elite. It was obviously not worth it to fight against these scorpions. Hearing Han Fei's roar, many captains of the 8th Battalion were taken aback. Their first choice was to believe him. After all, as members of the same battalion, they knew Han Fei more or less. They all knew that he was a genius. Since he said he was going to release the poison, he must have a reason to do so. However, the other allies didn't know that. They only thought that Han Fei was courting death by rushing into the scorpions alone. However, a shocking scene unfolded before their eyes. 10 blue sea wandering dragon daggers spun rapidly and rushed into the scorpions like meat grinders. Han Fei was wearing an ultra-quality battle suit. Outside the ultra-quality battle suit, he was wearing a spiritual energy protective cover. Outside the body, he was wearing the 6 spirits armor. In this way, when Han Fei rushed into the scorpions, he immediately crushed a spiritual fruit. Immediately, spiritual energy erupted where he was, and a massive number of scorpions surrounded him. Han Fei sneered and saw that within a radius of 50 meters around him, it began to rain. Immediately afterward, Han Fei's figure jumped and moved on the scorpion shells like a ghost. As he moved, he swept up those big scorpions. After about 10 minutes, the big scorpions began to riot and spit bubbles frantically from their mouths. At first, it was 1 or 2, then it was in groups of 3 or 5, and then it was in large numbers. All the scorpions drenched by the heavy rain began to spit bubbles. They didn't chase after people but collided and fought each other. Seeing this, the captains of the 8th Battalion all roared, "Kill! Kill this wave and we will have a lot of breathing space." What Han Fei didn't know was that in the front line, somewhere 50 kilometers away from him, there was a fatty who was armed to the teeth with a set of supreme-grade spiritual weapons. A big fish that could spit bubbles was spitting out bubbles crazily. And in the little fatty's hand, there was a thing like a squirt gun, spraying water out. The little fatty's opponent was a large swarm of red worms, which looked extremely creepy. However, all the worms that little fatty sprayed were rolling on the ground, vomiting and having diarrhea. If Han Fei were here, he would definitely recognize him. Isn't this fucking Chao Chiu Chiu? Why is he on the battlefield too? Neither of them knew that the other was on this battlefield, but they thought of fighting poison with poison at the same time. Therefore, in the vision of a hidden fisher, both of them were detected by him. Ha! Are they 2 poison masters? A junior hanging fisher and an advanced dangling fisher. Interesting. Han Fei had a great time spraying. This was a pure water control technique. The Poison King was wrapped in water and scattered from the sky, and wherever it passed, all the scorpions became soft-footed. Just when Han Fei was having a great time spraying, he saw a fishing boat had already swept over him. The hidden fisher shouted to Han Fei, "Temporary call. Get on my fishing boat. I have a teammate." Chow Chou Chou. Han Fei was speechless. Why was Chow Chou Chou here? Chow Chou Chou was dumbfounded. He didn't do anything. While he was spraying water, he was inexplicably summoned by someone and taken to the fishing boat. The hidden fisher pierced through more than 800 meters with a sword light and wiped out hundreds of scorpions for the 8th Battalion. Then he shouted, "Get on." Seeing that the enemy was so aggressive, Han Fei immediately jumped onto the fishing boat and then said to Yu Lingyun and the others, "Stay calm. If you can't beat them, retreat and form teams." As soon as Han Fei shouted, he turned around, only to see Chow Chou Chou looking at Han Fei with sparkling eyes. What a coincidence! What a coincidence! You're here too. Latest chapter of The Fishing God, full text of The Fishing God, /127859/ download address of The Fishing God, /mobile reading address of The Fishing God, /127859/ for the convenience of reading next time, you can click Collection below to record this time, Chapter 627, What a Coincidence! You're here too. You'll see it next time you open the bookshelf. If you like Fishing God, please recommend this book to your friends, QQ, blog, WeChat, etc. Thank you for your support. Chapter 628. This hidden fisher's star rank was shockingly high. It was even higher than senior brother Dushuai's, reaching the level of 7 stars. Han Fei couldn't help but calm down. During this period, he had already understood. The difference of 1 star rank was like the difference between heaven and earth. Those who had 7 stars were definitely big shots on the scattered stars island. So, Han Fei chose to compromise and looked at Chow Chou. When Han Fei saw Chow Chou, he didn't believe it at all. With this guy's cowardly personality, why would he appear on the battlefield? The hidden fisher said, "Huh. No wonder you both like to use poison. It turns out that you know each other." Cough, cough. Han Fei seemed to understand something. It turned out that Chow Chou was also sprinkling poison somewhere on this battlefield. Then, he was noticed by the hidden fisher. Han Fei was embarrassed. How the hell do I know how to use poison? It's all the work of this guy. Before Chow Chou and Han Fei said anything, the hidden fisher said, "Go to the front and put as much poison as you can into the sea." Chow Chou was about to speak, but he heard Han Fei say, "Senior, I refined this poison with thousands of poisonous grasses. I'd rather jump into the sea than let them all go. I'll suffer a great loss." Chow Chou was speechless. "Why? I'm the one who made this poison." Chow Chou quickly responded, "Yes, yes, yes. Senior, in order to refine this poison, I once tested it with my own body and almost died. Senior, in order to refine this poison, I once tested it with my own body and almost died from it. Senior, in order to refine this poison, I once tested it with my own body and almost died." You? Using his own body to test the poison? Even pigs laughed. The hidden fisher glanced at Han Fei and Chow Chou indifferently. "I'll count your points." Han Fei immediately patted his chest. "For the safety of my comrades, I'm duty-bound to do it." Seeing that Han Fei was so shameless, Chow Chou immediately said, "Fine. If they could win this battle, what was a mere poison? I'll just try to make poison again at the risk of being poisoned." The hidden fisher's hands trembled and he almost slapped the 2 of them into the sea. "Why weren't you so generous when I didn't give you points?" However, the war was urgent. Just now, he observed that Han Fei and the fatty released the poison, and it worked. No matter how many people were poisoned to death, the poison in their bodies could probably kill 200 battle's soul masters. The distance of 50 kilometers was only enough for Han Fei to say a few words. At this moment, Han Fei and Chao Qiu finally saw the front-line battlefield. On the first row of stone pillars, there were all 4-star soul warriors. Each and every one of them was holding a bow in their hands, and each of their attacks seemed to be able to blast dozens of meters into the sea. The sea was a sea of red that stretched for dozens of miles. Han Fei even saw a red inferior man-fish far away, riding on the back of a fancy fish that was full of thorns. Amidst the red ghost tide, there were indistinct figures of little man-fish. A large number of marine creatures were being driven away. At the very top of the red tide was a layer of red lotus bugs that were half a meter long. How many creatures were there in the water? He couldn't see it anyway. Occasionally, the inferior man-fish wrapped in seawater would shoot spears at the soul warriors on the stone pillars in the tide. The hidden fisher roared, "Release the poison." Han Fei and Chao Qiu sprayed a small amount of the poison king into the water at the same time. The hidden fisher took a look and said, "How can it be so little?" "All of it." Chao Qiu said, "This much is enough. Let's go somewhere else." "Huh?" The hidden fisher was slightly taken aback and thought to himself, how can such a small amount of poison be enough for such a large sea? However, after only a few seconds, the sea was surging. Large swathes of bugs were spitting out red juice, which was greasy and disgusting as it floated on the surface of the sea. Under the water, colorful fish and crabs floated to the surface of the sea from time to time. These creatures were attacking indiscriminately, causing the surface of the sea to look like rolling lava. It was as if there was a riot. Hiss! Seeing this scene, the hidden fisher immediately looked at Chao Qiu and Han Fei. "What poison is this?" Chao Qiu said proudly, "This poison doesn't have a name. It's called the Poison King. This means that even the King Cheng ancestor would not be able to withstand the poison." Smack! The hidden fisher said gloomily, "Be nice." Chao Qiu was so proud of himself that he almost raised his head to the sky. He quickly shrank his head. This poison can be spread through the flesh and blood of the poisoned creatures, so it has a wide range. Smack! Then throw all of them into the sea. The hidden fisher slapped Chao Qiu and then looked at Han Fei. "You do it. You can control water. Condense the poison into rainwater and throw it into the sea." How could Han Fei not agree? However, of course, he wouldn't contribute all of the Poison King. He didn't believe that this person could really give him a lot of points. But he could give him half. Anyway, since Chao Qiu had appeared, he could have as many Poison Kings as he wanted. So, on the cruel battlefield of the Path of Giants. Above the low sky, heavy rain condensed and followed the fishing boat all the way. So, on the frontline battlefield of the Path of Giants, wherever the heavy rain passed, the sea was boiling. The army of worms, which had been charging forward aggressively and fearlessly without fear of death, stopped at this moment. It was not that they didn't want to move forward, but the situation was different. Their internal organs were almost gone. What was the point of charging forward? On the countless stone pillars, many soul warriors who were shooting crazily were dumbfounded. What's going on? What's wrong with the rain? After being watered by the rain, the power and speed of the red tide were greatly reduced. Many of them didn't even rush to the stone pillars at all. They either directly vomited or killed each other. Someone said in surprise, "Is this poison?" "Oh my, is there any poison that can restrain the poisonous creatures in the tide of red ghosts?" "Damn, is this poison fighting poison with poison?" Who are the two teenagers who spread the poison? These two people have made great contributions this time. Look at that inferior man-fish. He's vomiting and having diarrhea. He can't even hold the harpoon firmly in his hand. Brothers, work harder. Victory is at hand. The soul warriors in the front row worked harder and harder. However, even if they threw a lot of poison kings into the sea, they only managed to cover less than 1/3 of the area. All the poison kings in Han Fei's plan were thrown away. Chao Qiu didn't seem to have many. He only lasted less than 10 minutes longer than Han Fei before he threw them all away. Looking at the boiling sea, the hidden fisher couldn't help but sigh. Should I suggest to the higher-ups to study poisons? If they could concoct a large number of poisons as terrifying as the Poison Kings, he felt that the problem of the tide of red ghosts would no longer be a problem. The number of people killed in the battle could even be reduced to 1%. It's a pity that you don't have enough poison in your hands. Just as the hidden fisher sighed with emotion, he suddenly had an idea. He rose into the air, threw out a long spear, and moved as fast as lightning, colliding with a dark harpoon in the sky. Bam! The hidden fisher took a few steps back and looked at a red inferior man-fish in the distance. Behind the inferior man-fish, Han Fei also saw a half-mermaid and exclaimed in surprise. The hidden fisher laughed. Go back, you cowards. Behind, many inferior man-fish surfaced from the sea, standing in the distance and watching this scene. Han Fei felt a lot of sharp eyes. Those inferior man-fish seemed to be going to eat him and Chao Qiu. Especially that half-mermaid, it seemed to be staring at Han Fei and Chao Qiu. Chao Qiu couldn't help but shrink his head. I know inferior man-fish are intelligent. Do they hate us? Han Fei heaved a long sigh. Yes, they definitely hate us. In the future, we have to be very careful in the sea. Ha ha ha. The hidden fisher stood on the side of the boat. These sea demons have all become demons, and their intelligence is no worse than that of humans. They did target the two of you, but it's not a big problem. However, it's not a big problem. The sea is so vast, where can they find you? Han Fei asked, what if they have some kind of wanted order? The hidden fisher sneered. So be it. We are elites of the human race. Why should we be afraid of these ugly little fish demons? Okay, the outcome of this battle has been decided. You two have made great contributions. Come with me later. Because the red tide at the front had lost the ability to advance, there were no more reinforcements in the rear. In this way, the battle in the rear had been quickly pacified. Except for some people who were asked to stay to clean up the battlefield, many people had begun to retreat. At this moment, in the sky, two fishing boats rushed over. Han Fei said in surprise, Captain. Zhong Han glanced at Han Fei. Yes. Then, Zhong Han cupped his hands to the hidden fisher next to Han Fei and said, Lord Yang, this boy belongs to the Skeleton Shore. He is the captain of the 37th Squad of the 8th Battalion under the 3rd column. May I know, on the other side, a hanging fisher also flew over, and it was a female hanging fisher. She glanced at Chao Qiu, then cupped her hands and said, Lord Yang, Chao Qiu is the second young master of the Chao family in the Thousand-Star City. He is not allowed to enter the battlefield. Please let him leave with me. The Lord Yang next to Han Fei narrowed his eyes slightly. Oh. A member of the Chao family from the Thousand-Star City? Interesting. However, these two people have made great contributions. Now they have to come with me. Lord. Lord. Get lost, a powerful and ferocious pressure was released indiscriminately. The air was shaking, and the spiritual energy was directly disordered. The hidden fisher was angry, and his murderous aura made Han Fei and Chao Qiu dizzy. This was the first time that this pressure fell directly on them. Chao Qiu seemed to be fine. However, Han Fei's body trembled as if a mountain was pressing down on him, making him frown. Zhong Han and the female hanging fisher looked at each other, then gritted their teeth. Yes. What's going on? Han Fei and Little Ball seemed to be communicating with each other. However, neither of them sent a voice transmission, because in front of a hidden fisher, the effect of voice transmission was almost zero. They didn't know how many times they had experienced this. Chapter 629. Han Fei and Chao Qiu were taken to a place named the Scattered Stars Archive Room. The archive room was set up in an inconspicuous shop that sold all kinds of arts and classics next to the refining hall. From the outside, it looked like a shop, but there was more to it than meets the eye. 200 meters down from the secret room, Han Fei, and Chao Qiu saw the words, Scattered Stars Archive Room. This place was more like an abandoned, run-down house, almost as old as the library of the Thug Academy. It was dark, except for 2 small lamps on the 2 sides of the door. Half of the wick was exposed, and the feeble flames were burning, as if they could die out at any moment. The shabby house seemed rather large. The broken door looked so old that it might break at any moment. Chao Qiu secretly tugged at Han Fei and asked, "Will we be killed to keep our mouths shut?" The hidden fisher surnamed Yang in front of them suddenly turned around and smiled creepily. "Do you think the 2 of you deserve to be killed? If I want to silence you, I can just find a random place and kill you." Han Fei didn't want to answer Chao Qiu's stupid question. He was just curious about what this place was. It was quite mysterious. Han Fei asked, "Senior, what is this place?" "Don't ask. You'll find out later." Dumb. Dumb. The hidden fisher knocked on the door and called softly, "Elder Chen." After around 10 breaths' time, an old and hoarse voice came from the door, Yang Dao, tell me their names." Yang Dao said, "Elder Chen. One of them is Chao Qiu, and the other is Han Fei. Both of them came to the Scattered Stars Island a few months ago." Han Fei and Chao Qiu were confused. What kind of person could a 7-star expert be so respectful to? Also, why did they tell him their names? Creak. About 10 breaths later, the shabby wooden door opened a tiny gap. Han Fei and Chao Qiu looked into the door curiously, only to see 2 jade slips flying out with a swish. Yang Dao caught the 2 jade slips and read them quickly. He was slightly surprised. He turned around and looked at Han Fei. "Huh? Did you kill a peak-level hanging fisher who guarded the dragon boat?" Han Fei narrowed his eyes. What? There was such information in the jade slip? In fact, after returning from the level 3 fishery, Old Bai had said that it was okay to kill him. However, he had offended many people in the 1,000-star city. The Scattered Stars Island was not the Blue Sea town. Even if senior brother Dashuai was here, Han Fei still didn't feel safe. Han Fei made up his mind. This time, he had to find a way to find Old Bai and the others. If there was anyone he could trust, it would be Old Bai and Jiang Qin. Jiang Qin was said to be a peak-level hanging fisher. However, Old Bai's strength was unfathomable, and he would definitely be safer with his backing. However, Kai Yang only let out a small cry of surprise before he went silent. He quickly turned his eyes to Chao Qiu and looked him up and down several times. A moment later, Kai Yang threw the jade slip back into the door and looked at Chao Qiu. Then he said softly, "Elder Chen, I can't see through him. Do you have any suggestions?" At the door, the old voice echoed again, "Let them choose." Yang Dao was stunned. Huh? Let them choose for themselves. Bam! The wooden door was closed. The moment it was closed, a vague voice came from inside, "Yes." Yang Dao cupped his hands at the wooden door and said to Han Fei and Chao Qiu solemnly, "Come with me." Another moment passed. Han Fei and Chao Qiu followed Yang Kai to the periphery of the transverse mountain. There was a large courtyard here, and there were arrays on all sides of the courtyard. Also, Han Fei could easily tell that there was a killing array in it. However, it didn't seem to be a complete killing array, but a maze. Yang Dao said coldly, "Follow me and don't move." Han Fei and Chao Qiu looked at each other and followed Yang Dao in silence. After they entered the yard, they found that the density of spiritual energy here was 5 times higher than outside. Looking around, there were all kinds of spirit herbs being dried everywhere. There were also spirit herbs and spirit fruits being planted on the ground and in the pond. Different from the fruits and vegetables in the plantation, these were real spiritual plants. Han Fei glanced at them and found that many spiritual fruits contained more than 200,000 points of spiritual energy. Yang Dao looked at Han Fei. "Tell me about it." Han Fei was stunned. "About what?" Yang Dao asked, "What did you sense the first time you saw this place?" Han Fei saw that Yang Dao was smiling, as if he were enjoying a good show. Han Fei couldn't help but scan the place with his senses again, only to discover that his senses could only reach the inside of the yard and couldn't penetrate the ground. Yang Dao chuckled. Everybody has senses. Then, there must be a lot of ways to block them. Han Fei scanned the surroundings again and said after a long time, if I'm not mistaken, this place is centered around the spiritual plants. The pond in the yard is connected to the land and constitutes a superimposed spirit gathering array. Outside of the yard, there must be a maze and a killing array. Since you brought us here, there must be someone here. But there's nothing in the yard, which means they're all underground. All of a sudden, Han Fei raised his head and saw a few black spots passing from one side. They must have been birds in the transverse mountain. However, those birds were passing from the side, which made Han Fei's heart skip a beat. Pondering for a moment, Han Fei said, "This place is very dangerous." Yang Dao smiled casually. "Why do you say so?" Han Fei said, "It's said that the transverse mountain is dangerous, but I haven't seen a single creature near this yard yet. I'm afraid that it's not just because of the killing arrays, but also because they're wary of certain people underground." Yang Dao looked at Chao Qiu. "What about you? What did you see?" Chao Qiu scratched his head. "Is someone doing research here?" Yang Dao's face slightly changed. "Oh. How did you find it?" Chao Qiu said proudly, "What's so difficult about that? I found some poisonous grasses here. The grasses themselves are nothing, but the stones on the ground are different. The stones here have medicinal properties. If they didn't have any medicinal properties, the spiritual plants here wouldn't be able to absorb enough spiritual energy no matter how abundant it is. To be able to turn the ground, the walls, and the scenery here into something medicinal, this was not something an ordinary person could do. Only the most unusual people could have come up with such a method. So, someone is doing research here." Yang Dao took a deep breath and thought to himself, this little fatty figured out that someone is doing research here just from the floor under his feet. Although it's just a speculation, his speculation is so firm and matter-of-fact. It's worth paying attention to. Yang Dao paused for a moment. "It turns out that you're quite talented. However, what I'm going to say next is entirely up to you. Well, don't say a word about what I'm going to say today. Otherwise, you won't be able to bear the consequences." Yang Dao said, "On the Scattered Stars Island, most people only know places such as the Command Center, the Dark Hunter Legion, the Refining Hall, and the Pioneers. Even if there are some special organizations, they're only known to the public. But this place, this yard, in the entire Scattered Stars Island, few people know about it." Han Fei quickly said, "Wait a moment." "Huh?" Yang Dao was rather unhappy to be interrupted by Han Fei. He squinted at Han Fei. Han Fei asked, "Senior, are we free?" Yang Dao. Seeing that Yang Dao was vaguely emitting a murderous aura, he thought to himself, "Do you know how many people can't come here even if they want to?" Chao Qiu secretly raised his thumb at Han Fei. Yang Dao said gloomily, "I'm quite free. You don't have to worry about that at all." "That's good. That's good." Yang Dao snorted and continued, "There's a place on the Scattered Stars Island called the Scattered Stars 7 Units. Those who could enter the Scattered Stars 7 Units were all dragons and phoenixes among men. If you hadn't distinguished yourselves in the tide of red ghosts, and if one of you wasn't a poison refiner and the other an advanced dangling fisher, do you think I would have noticed you?" Yang Dao paused for a moment and said, "The so-called Scattered Stars 7 Units are actually the 7 most mysterious departments on the Scattered Stars Island. Only the unparalleled heavenly talents are allowed to enter the first unit. The second unit has the most members of the Scattered Stars 7 Units and is the easiest to join. The advantage is that members of the second unit can go to sea. The 3 divisions concoct medicine. No matter what kind of medicine it is, treasured medicine or poison, the 3 divisions concoct them all. The 4th unit is for refining. To join the 4th unit, you have to be able to seal souls. The 5th unit is for supervision. They're quite mysterious. They supervise the scattered stars island and have the right to deploy troops. The 6th unit is for research. I don't know what they're working on, but they're good at everything. They're the ones who created this floor. This was not a department that anyone could enter just because they wanted to. You have to present some impressive research results. The 7th unit is for assassination. The members of the 7th unit never show up. They can be anybody. Yang Dao explained. Han Fei and Chao Qiu looked at each other in bewilderment. So, did Yang Dao mean that they should choose a department to join? You're tuning in to the Blissful Bookshelf YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.